Warrior Lore. Chapter 2956. What Qin Yin said wasn't without basis. When Du Xiaofu died for the first time in the early years, it was for the sake of the stone dragon, and he'd already been buried in the earth. But a few years later, he'd actually miraculously come back to life. And in the final battle with the demon god, he was only left with a head. His primordial spirit was destroyed, and there was no life left. But in the end, that brat still came back to life, and in one fell swoop, he controlled the heavenly laws of Shenwu world. These were the two times that left the deepest impression. Other than that, there were a few other times of life and death, but they were all solved by that purple-robed youth. In other words, Du Xiaofu had already experienced death many times, and each time, his enemies felt incomparably happy. But at the last moment, that joy was shattered again. Following that, Du Xiaofu's cultivation broke through again and again, his strength skyrocketing. At this time, Dongli Qihuang and Chen Yin both felt a little flustered. They looked at each other tacitly and saw the shock in each other's eyes. You also think that Du Xiaofu brat won't die so easily? Chen Yin coughed lightly, feeling that his throat was a little dry. He looked at Dongli Qihuang beside him and asked in disbelief. Dongli Qihuang did not say anything, and only nervously licked his lips and nodded heavily. In view of the fact that Du Xiaofu had refreshed the world's understanding over and over again over the years, at this time, the two demon attendants felt that the purple-robed youth might really not die like this. Regarding this, they were even more moved than the extremely nervous Lu Jingyun, Lu Yuxiao, Long Ke, Long Su, and the others. They were even more unwilling to believe that Du Xiaofu would die like this. I really hope he won't wake up again. Chen Yin unconsciously clenched his fists and looked around, no longer in a hurry to escape to the 12th level of hell. He cast his gaze towards Du Xiaofu's direction and quietly stood there, wanting to see Du Xiaofu's final outcome. Du Xiaofu, Dongli Qihuang's expression was exactly the same as Chen Yan's, both of them clenching their fists tightly. In the hearts of the two demon attendants, they hoped that Du Xiaofu would not die. But right now, their hearts were filled with uncertainty. Their intuition told them that the purple-robed youth might suddenly wake up again, and he might become even stronger. However, the two demon attendants were extremely unwilling. They only wanted to see the final result before they could leave. Their greatest hope was that their intuition was wrong and that Du Xiaofu was really dead and would never appear in front of them again. Uncle Master Martial Uncle Du. In the distance, Du Xiaofu, Lu Jingyun's Lu Jingyun. Many of Heaven's Star Lu of Devil, of the of Ning's. There's Yan's to there. After a few rounds of examination, they discovered that Du Xiaofu's body really did not have the slightest trace of life remaining. This was a sign that he was completely dead. On the other side, Long Ke, Long Su, and the others had examined Du Xiaojing, Du Xiaoyao, and Little Xingxing. Fortunately, although they were heavily injured, they still showed signs of life. It was only a matter of time before they returned to peak condition. A genius actually died just like that. Some of the older generation experts from the 33 heavens spoke up, looking at Du Xiaofu with endless pain and regret. Everyone had already confirmed that Du Xiaofu had really perished. His soul core had been obliterated into nothingness, and only an empty body that was still intact remained. It was the power of the Tao that destroyed Martial Uncle Du's soul. This is the greatest hurdle of the realm of carrying Tao, Du Jingyun murmured. He knew a lot about the realm of carrying Tao, so he naturally knew why Du Xiaofu's soul had been destroyed into nothingness. Condensing one's faith and will into a sword was one's own Tao sword. The Tao sword was ferocious, different from the original principles of Yin and Yang, different from the Tao of God Pangu, the demon ancestor, and the others. Living beings formed from the 4 original Tao swords would naturally feel a terrifying fear towards the Tao sword. It was a process that was extremely difficult to overcome. Under Lu Jingyun's perception, he was able to discover that there was still a tiny speck of light in Du Xiaofu's mind. It was tens of thousands of times smaller than a grain of rice, but it was this tiny speck of light that emitted an extremely terrifying aura. Lu Jingyun knew that it was probably a remnant of the Tao sword. It was originally used to carve Tao marks into the soul, but it had become a life-threatening object. The Tao is difficult to go against. Wanting to walk out one's own Tao is easier said than done. Lu Jingyun let out a long sigh and gradually began to accept this result. The Tao was innate, and everything that living beings had was bestowed by the Tao. If one rashly tampered with it, they would naturally suffer a backlash. Since it's a failure, then what's the point of leaving this Tao sword behind? It's better for it to be destroyed along with martial Uncle Du. Lu Jingyun's eyes dimmed as he sighed. He released his own power and entered Du Xiaofu's mind, enveloping that tiny speck of light. That was Du Xiaofu's Tao sword. It could only pose a threat to Du Xiaofu, but it was completely useless in front of Lu Jingyun. Since Du Xiaofu was already dead, there was no point for this Tao sword to continue existing. Lu Jingyun wanted to erase it and make Du Xiaofu truly fall silent. However, before Lu Jingyun's power could even touch that speck of light, his soul power suddenly felt a surging wave of energy. It was like a raging tide that swept everything away. In just an instant, his power was brazenly repelled and expelled from Du Xiaofu's mind. In the final moment before it left Du Xiaofu's mud pill palace, he caught a glimpse of the speck of light that was even smaller than a grain of rice exploding with a mighty aura. Boom! As Lu Jingyun's power retreated, a domineering pressure suddenly descended from the void, once again pressing down on the heads of all the surrounding creatures, causing their souls to tremble. On the other hand, Du Xiaofu's body gradually released a mysterious light that completely covered his body. No one dared to stay any longer. They all retreated in an instant, distancing themselves from the purple-robed youth. Even Lu Jingyun did the same. They sensed a terrifying aura. The purple-robed youth's power was extremely strange and terrifying. The Yuqing Divine Emperor is, after everyone retreated, many of the 33 Heavens experts were even more puzzled. The purple-robed youth's movements were too extraordinary. It caught everyone off guard, just like when he suddenly lost all signs of life. It was extremely sudden. Is he about to wake up? An expert murmured and said. They could feel that the power in Du Xiaofu's body was extremely terrifying. It was extremely vigorous and was more powerful than any of the experts present. Soon after, a strong vitality drifted out from his body. Such a scene instantly stunned everyone. Buzz. Then, everyone saw that on the other side, Du Xiaojing, Little Xingxing, and Du Xiaoyao's bodies were once again stimulated with boundless power. The three of them entered into a state of cultivation at the same time. Under the cover of boundless power, their bodies and primordial spirits were continuously nourished. Master's Uncle Du is not dead. He is not dead. The Yuqing Divine Emperor is alive again. He is alive. What a miracle. He was clearly devoid of life, but he suddenly woke up. From the looks of it, he seems to have succeeded in breaking through. Congratulations. Congratulations. Around them, countless experts from the 33 heavens and the 3,000 great worlds were in an uproar. Many of them shouted excitedly, their bodies trembling with excitement. Du Xiaofu had come back from the dead in such a short period of time. It was difficult not to be excited. Everyone's emotions rose and fell rapidly with him. They were indescribably happy. At this point, their hearts were filled with excitement and joy. If Du Xiaofu had a breakthrough, the 33 heavens and the 3,000 great worlds would be most happy to see it. As for the people of the demon race, they would feel even more depressed. Let's wait and see. I'm afraid it won't be long before Master's Uncle Du takes that crucial step, Lu Jingyun said in a deep voice. His eyes were filled with anticipation. If Du Xiaofu could take that step, it would be a great reference for him. It would provide him with a lot of help in breaking through that level in the future. With this thought in mind, Lu Jingyun stared unblinkingly at Du Xiaofu. He even used the power of his primordial spirit to spy on some movements. He wanted to catch something. In the following time, no one spoke. They were all paying attention to Du Xiaofu's next changes. Where the purple-robed young man was, waves of violent and fierce chi floated out. This power was incomparably powerful and quickly spread to all the 18 layers of hell. The experts of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 great worlds in the 11th layer of hell, as well as the many experts of the demon race, felt it especially strong. A terrifying pressure enveloped down, suppressing the heads of all living beings, making them feel uneasy. It was even more terrifying than facing the supreme heavenly might. Lu Jingyun and the others knew that this was because of Du Xiaofu's Tao. He had really taken the first step. I really succeeded, wrapped in endless light. The purple-robed young man slowly opened his eyes, revealing a look of endless surprise. He muttered to himself, almost jumping up to celebrate. At this time, an indescribable feeling arose in Du Xiaofu's heart. He only felt that he was extremely lucky. Previously, when he had made his final gamble, his remaining primordial spirit had almost been completely destroyed by the thin sword. It was also because of this that his entire body had lost its vitality, as if he had died. Even his consciousness and perception had been completely lost. Now that Du Xiaofu had woken up, he knew that it was just an illusion. He had succeeded. Even if only a trace of his primordial spirit was left, it still survived. The small light spot that Lu Jingyun saw in his mind was not the path sword condensed by Du Xiaofu, but a small engraved on his primordial spirit. Yes, his primordial spirit was only left with a small dot, and the mark left by the thin sword was only that big. It completely covered the former, and even Lu Jingyun could not detect it. No matter how small the mark is, it is still a Tao that I have walked on my own. It is engraved on my primordial spirit. The corners of Du Xiaofu's mouth curled up, and a smile hung on his face. Even if it was just a mark that was thousands of times smaller than a grain of rice, it was still a Tao mark, and it represented that he had successfully taken the first step. What he needed to do next was to restore the power of his primordial spirit, and then engrave more marks step by step until he reached perfection. At that time, he would truly be in the Tao carrier realm. Begin to restore my strength. Du Xiaofu did not think too much about it, and began to control the power in his body to circulate rapidly. Waves of vast power were mobilized by him, flowing through his limbs and bones, and finally hiding. In his mind's Niwen palace, the primordial spirit that was much smaller than a grain of rice was also rapidly growing. As time passed, it gradually became the size of a bean, then the size of a longan, then the size of a fist, and constantly changing. The form of the red-bone horse monkey appeared once again, and on the forehead of the red-bone horse monkey there was a small dot of light. That was the mark of Du Xiaofu's Tao. Rumble. In the outside world, the terrifying power turned into a world-destroying storm, rolling and gathering madly with Du Xiaofu as the center. Under the cover of this tide of energy, many powerhouses felt as if Mount Tai was pressing down on them, and it was difficult for them to breathe. Soon, the other layers of the 11th and 18th layers of hell also showed a mysterious scene. The boundless power of yin and yang was vast and mighty, rolling layer by layer, like a huge wave, releasing a terrifying power, gradually forming a yin and yang Tai Chi diagram between heaven and earth. This Tai Chi diagram rotated like a divine wheel, as if it could destroy everything in the world, making one's scalp tingle. It was incomparably terrifying. And as time continued to pass, the yin and yang of the Tai Chi diagram began to fuse, causing the yin and yang dividing line to become somewhat blurry and not as clear as before. Under such circumstances, not only did the pressure in the void not weaken, it became even more blazing, and the terrifying power was extremely vast, causing people to be even more frightened to death. This is the power of the Tao. A powerhouse of the 33 heavens said with endless amazement. For some of the old monsters of the Oblivion realm who had lived for many years, they had been trapped in the third level for many years without being able to form their own Tao. The power of the Tao that the heavens and earth had placed on them was very difficult to change. But today, the Yuqing Divine Emperor had done it, and this shocked everyone. For countless years in the 33 heavens, apart from the Xiantian realm of Tao from the ancient times, no one has been able to reach this level. I hope that the Yuqing Divine Emperor's breakthrough will lead to more people having the confidence to reach the Tao carrier realm. There were also people who murmured with anticipation. After the collapse of the 33 heavens in the ancient war, it had greatly limited the upper limit of cultivation, and no one had been able to reach the Tao carrier realm. Of course, that realm was also incomparably ethereal and difficult to estimate, and it was not something that could be reached easily. The power of the Tao. This is a brand new power of the Tao. Under everyone's gazes, the Taiji yin-yang diagram in the sky was incomparably terrifying, especially the blurry yin-yang dividing line in the middle. It was like the thickest thing, and it carried the most terrifying thing. Many powerhouses knew that once Du Xiaofu carved out a complete trace of the Tao, the dividing line would completely fade away, and the separated yin and yang forces would finally merge into one. At that time, Du Xiaofu would be at the peak of the Tao carrier realm, and he would be as powerful as Lu Xiaoyu now. Rumble. The terrifying commotion continued, and the yin-yang diagram was like a dark cloud that hung over everyone's heads, releasing a pressure that made it difficult for them to breathe. But in the end, everything flowed into Du Xiaofu's body like flowing water. When the purple-robed figure appeared in front of everyone again, what surged out was an irresistible pressure. Endless light was emitted from Du Xiaofu's body, making him look like a high and mighty god, extraordinary and independent from the mortal world, overlooking all things. Along with Du Xiaofu's transformation, not far from him, Du Xiaoyao, Du Xiaojing, and little Xingxing also experienced earth-shaking changes. Their realms had reached the peak of ninth sky of a mortal realm, which was extremely terrifying. Previously, these three were just high-level immortal realm experts, and little Xingxing was the strongest among them, but he only had the cultivation base of 8th sky of a mortal realm. Such a terrifying advancement was hard to believe. Needless to say, during the process of Du Xiaofu's advancement, Du Xiaoyao, little Xingxing, and Du Xiaojing had obtained unimaginable benefits. As creatures from the divine martial world, the three of them had a deep bloodline connection with Du Xiaofu. Of course, they had benefited greatly. If it's like this, all creatures in the divine martial world will benefit greatly. At this moment, a forgotten realm expert from the 3,000 Great Worlds spoke up. It was Lu Youxiao's speculation, but Lu Jingyan denied it because Du Xiaofu hadn't broken through yet, so he hadn't carved his own great Tao. But now, it was different. The purple-cloaked young man had done it so quickly. Of course, the entire divine martial world would benefit greatly. At this moment, the space of that world had started to expand, and the spiritual energy there would be thicker. They're all awake. Let's go and see. When all the terrifying scenes faded away, Long Fault couldn't wait to rush out. He wanted to check on Du Xiaofu, little Xingxing, and the others. The other experts also nodded and rushed out one after another, flying into the distance. Du Xiaofu retracted his aura when he saw the countless experts heading in his direction. A smile hung on his lips as he looked at them. But suddenly, a terrifying and miserable roar resounded through the sky, and it sounded out from boundless distance, causing the expressions of everyone to tighten abruptly. That roar was so terrifying that it subdued the primordial spirits of many creatures, making them fall from the sky. Chapter 29:57. That kid, Du Xiaofu, has really come back to life. Far away from Du Xiaofu and the others, Dongli Qihuang and Chen Yin stood side by side at the entrance to the 12th level of hell, and they watched the situation in the distance. When the violet-robed young man suddenly surged with a ferocious aura, the two devil attendants had already sensed that something was off. In next to no time, they saw that Du Xiaofu had really awakened once more, and he emanated an extremely terrifying, imposing aura. Obviously, that kid, Du Xiaofu, had come back to life. Moreover, he'd successfully taken that leap forward and carved a Tao that belonged to him. Such an outcome caused the hearts of Dongli Qihuang and Chen Yin to feel boundless heaviness, and they were filled with hatred, yet they were helpless against it. I hope my lord recovers as soon as possible and restrains Du Xiaofu, so as to prevent him from being a threat to the grand plans of my devil race. Dongli Qihuang spoke in a cold voice. The current situation was something they weren't willing to see happen the most. After Du Xiaofu broke through this level, he'd taken a step into the half-step Tao enlightened realm, and he was already capable of surpassing all the experts of the devil race besides the Lord Devil Ancestor. If he was allowed to take another step forward, then even the Lord Devil Ancestor would be extremely threatened at that time. Now it would seem like only the Lord himself would be able to completely suppress Du Xiaofu and prevent that kid from continuing to grow. Let's go quickly. After looking at it for a short moment, Chun Yin spoke in a straightforward manner. Du Xiaofu's strength had improved greatly, and it had far surpassed the two devil attendants. If they continued to stay here and were noticed and pursued by Du Xiaofu, then Dongli Qihuang and Chen Yin would probably be driven into a corner. The two devil attendants didn't dare hesitate, and they flashed out with the intention of entering the terrifying hellfire and entering the 12th level of hell. Moreover, they intended to continue deeper until they arrived at the 18th level of hell where the devil ancestor resided. But all of a sudden, a terrifying roar descended, as if it came from the ancient times. It contained endless fury and ferocity, as well as an intense sense of misery. When Dongli Qihuang and Chen Yin heard such a voice, they couldn't help but be stunned at the same time. They glanced at each other and saw extreme astonishment in each other's eyes. "My lord!" The two demon attendants blurted out at the same time. With their power, it was not difficult to tell where the howling came from. It came from the 18th level of hell, from their lord demon ancestor. "Oh no, it must be Lu Xiaoyu." Dongli Qihuang's face was so gloomy that it looked like water was about to drip out. His whole person was instantly filled with endless killing intent. "Damn Lu Xiaoyu! How dare you attack my lord?" Chen Yin gnashed his teeth hatefully and really wanted to tear Lu Xiaoyu into pieces. However, he didn't possess that sort of strength. From the terrifying roar just now, it wasn't difficult for him to imagine what my lord was going through. Currently, the demon ancestor was at a critical juncture in his recovery. He couldn't be disturbed in the slightest. Presumably, Lu Xiaoyu also knew this, and had actually snuck into the 18th level of hell to attack my lord. This would bring about a serious consequence. If my lord wanted to recover, it would be even more difficult and take a much longer time. "Let's go." The Eastern Flame Scarlet Phoenix did not say anything else. She waved her arm and rushed into the hellfire beside her. She followed the broken seal and headed towards the 12th level of hell. Chun Yin didn't waste any time and traveled with Dongli Qihuang. They only wanted to enter the 18th level of hell to take a look. If my lord was severely injured, it would be the worst thing for the demons to face. It seems that senior brother has attacked Jiangchen. In the distance, Du Xiaofu's expression changed. He'd also realized this. He knew what senior brother Lu Xiaoyu was trying to do. Lu Xiaoyu's goal was to buy him more time. Fortunately, he'd already made a breakthrough, so his heart relaxed a little. However, Du Xiaofu still didn't dare slack off. If he wanted to truly kill the demon ancestor, he was still far from it. Martial Uncle Du. Soon, Lu Jingyun, Lu Yuxiao, Long Ke, Long Su, and the other experts of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds all gathered around Du Xiaofu. After a simple conversation, Du Xiaofu said, "Let's continue to hunt down the demons." He glanced at the space around him. At this time, many demon experts had already fled into the distance. Almost all of them were rushing towards the entrance to the 12th level of hell. Du Xiaofu had caught sight of Dongli Qihuang and Chen Yin, but he wasn't in a hurry to deal with them. In addition, the 9 great demon generals were still trapped in the seal that senior brother Lu Xiaoyu had placed. It was difficult for them to escape. However, many cracks had already appeared on the seal. It wouldn't be long before it completely shattered. "Continue to kill. We can't let these demons go so easily." After the commotion caused by Du Xiaofu's breakthrough, a terrifying battle brewed once more. It was about to erupt. The demons panicked and fled with all their might. However, the experts of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds combined could completely crush them in terms of numbers and strength. "Kill." An expert of the 3,000 boundless worlds waved the long blade in his hand and shouted. He instantly pounced out and chased after the demons. However, just as he was about to do so, another huge explosion suddenly rang out. The entire world seemed to have been smashed by a huge object. It shook violently and didn't stop for a long time. Everyone felt as if the entire 18th level of hell was tightly grasped by an invisible hand and violently shook. It was as if a huge city wall was trembling and gravel was rolling down. It's Uncle Yanghua, Uncle Xiaolong, and Aunt Xintong. Lu Jingyan quickly understood that this must have been caused by Xiaolong, Dibatian, Donghuang Taixian, Yanghua, and Lu Xintong. Before they left, they had given some instructions to Lu Jingyun and the others. The first level of hell has been broken. The seal has been completely destroyed. I wonder if the carrier of Tao Realm expert who was the foundation of the array has been rescued alive. The other experts also thought of this problem and couldn't help but think in their hearts. Xiaolong and the others left with Lu Xiaoyou's long blade in order to rescue the 18 carrier of Tao Realm experts who had helped Pangu set up the 18 levels of hell in ancient times. Those experts were the foundation of the array. If they wanted to see the light of day again, they had to break all the seals. Now, the demon race was no longer a concern. Only the demon ancestor, the 9 great demon generals, and a few other experts still posed a threat to the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds. However, the 18 levels of hell could no longer trap them. The only thing that worried many of the experts present was that they didn't know how many of the 18 carrier of Tao Realm experts would be able to appear in front of the world again. They had experienced a terrifying battle in ancient times and exhausted their cultivation to set up the array. After countless years, it would be extremely rare for them to be able to awaken in the present world. Senior brother and brother Xiaolong have already made their move. We should also continue to push forward. Du Xiaofu's eyes flickered as he muttered to himself. Then, his figure instantly pounced on the demons. Kill. Under Du Xiaofu's lead, the experts of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds moved instantly and launched a fierce attack. This time, it's my turn to trample on you. Du Xiaofu's eyes narrowed as he thought to himself. He quickly caught up with a demon at the first stage of the meditative realm and punched out fiercely. It was as if a ferocious dragon had come out of its nest. It was brazen and peerless. As his punch landed, the body of the meditative realm expert of the Devil clan exploded into a cloud of blood mist that lingered in the void. In the blink of an eye, an expert died just like that. He didn't even have the slightest strength to struggle. 1. Du Xiaofu withdrew his fist. Then, he shifted his gaze and looked in another direction. His eyes were like lightning, as bright as the sun and as bright as thunder. Previously, the demon race had taken advantage of the many demon generals and wanted to crush the experts of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds. Fortunately, the dragon god and Lu Xiaoyu appeared in time. Otherwise, the situation would have become uncontrollable. Now that everything had been reversed, the 9 great demon generals were sealed and the demon race had lost their top combat strength. Du Xiaofu naturally wanted to get back at them. 2. In the next moment, his purple robe fluttered and his figure rose into the air. He appeared next to another meditative realm expert of the Devil clan and punched out again. Bang! Accompanied by a dull sound and a scream, the demon was blasted into pieces again. He couldn't be more dead. Du Xiaofu's aura surged. He felt that he had an inexhaustible power at this time. After taking that breakthrough and engraving a little bit of his own Tao, he felt as if his entire being had been sublimated. A little bit of Tao was a qualitative change from nothing to something. It was earth-shattering and could not be mentioned in the same breath. In his eyes, these cultivators in the meditative forgetting state were no match for him. Du Xiaofu felt that even if he were to face 2 demon generals at the same time, he would still be in an invincible position. However, he did not make a move against the 9 great demon generals. He wanted to wait for senior brother Lu Xiaoyu or Xiaolong to return. Under the protection of those powerhouses, he would dare to fight the 9 great demon generals. Otherwise, Du Xiaofu was not strong enough to face 9 people at the same time. Besides, if the 9 great demon generals rushed into the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds, it would be another massacre. Du Xiaofu naturally did not want such a situation to happen. Kill. Du Xiaofu shouted softly. His feet stepped on the great Tao as if he was stepping on the lines of the great Tao. His entire person carried an indescribable transcendent charm. His robes fluttered in the wind as he punched out again, blasting another devil powerhouse into pieces. The third one. At the same time, such words came out of Du Xiaofu's mouth. For the time being, he did not attack the demons below the meditative realm. He specifically targeted the nearby meditative realm experts to attack. Every time he attacked, he killed them easily. Run, run, run. Countless demons seemed to have gone mad as they fled for their lives. In their eyes, Du Xiaofu was like a peerless demon god. He was even more terrifying than them. This guy had the strength to shake the heavens and earth. No one could stop him. In front of him, the meditative realm experts were like little chicks waiting to be slaughtered. They could only be said to be unable to withstand a single blow. He could easily stomp them to death like bugs. Do you think you can escape? Many powerhouses of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds began to howl in excitement. They quickly chased after the demons. Every time they intercepted a demon, several people would swarm them and kill them in a few short moves. Du Xiaofu rushed at the front of the crowd, leading all the powerhouses through the 11th layer of hell and into the 12th layer of hell. Nearby, at least 20 meditative realm demons had died at his hands. And all of this happened in a short period of time. Such a ferocious action caused many powerhouses to be shocked. To the demons, it was like they were facing an abyss of fear. There were only a few meditative realm powerhouses in total. In such a short period of time, so many had died. In addition to the ones that had died at the hands of Lu Jingyun and the others, they had lost almost half of their numbers. The losses were huge. After that, Du Xiaofu no longer continued to chase after the meditative realm powerhouses. Any undying demons that were close to him were all killed by him. Du Xiaofu, I will tear you to pieces. Of the 9 demon generals who were sealed, the desolate fiend demon general roared furiously, his voice filled with uncontrollable anger. Seeing the demons die one by one at the hands of the purple-robed youth, he could no longer bear it. He only wanted to rush out of the light barrier and kill that brat with his axe. Those that had died were all elites of the demon race. Every loss was heart-wrenching. If it was because of Lu Xiaofu, desolate demon general wouldn't be so furious. But the one who had done it was Du Xiaofu. That brat was like an ant just a moment ago, like a shrimp that could be easily crushed to death. But in such a short period of time, he had broken through to such a terrifying level. If you want to fight the Yuqing godly emperor, break through the seal first if you have the ability. You can't even take care of yourself now, and you still care about others. Isn't it just the 9 demon generals? Don't forget that you are all little pigs being raised. The day you come out of the cage is the day you die. You sure like to shout. When you come out, you will cry. The powerhouses of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds began to ridicule them. They looked at the 9 great demon generals with disdain. In their minds, Du Xiaofu was no longer afraid of any of the demon generals. What was the use of desolate demon general shouting now? If he had the ability, he could still be so arrogant when he came out. Who cares about them? Continue to kill. One of the experts said. Then, everyone from the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds stopped paying attention to the 9 demon generals who were like trapped beasts. They continued to hunt ferociously. One demon after another died at their hands, causing the number of demons to decrease sharply. As they continued to push forward, the crowd could hear a loud roar every once in a while, accompanied by a powerful tremor. They knew that it was the dragon god, Dibatian, Donghuang Taixian, Yang Guo, and Lu Xintong who were saving the 18 enlightened beings. Every time they heard a tremor, it meant that a layer of the seal had been completely broken and the ancient existence had escaped. I wonder how many of the 18 enlightened beings will be left in the end. Du Xiaofu thought in his heart, feeling extremely emotional. The batch of Dao carriers who were born at the beginning of the ancient era were the luckiest people in the world. They were blessed with unique cultivation conditions, and by observing the evolution of the grand Daos of heaven and earth, they quickly grasped the complete power of the laws and gathered the complete power of the grand Daos. In the end, many of them successfully engraved their own Dao on their own primordial spirits, but at the same time, they were also the most heroic generation. Because of the demon slaughter, everyone had to throw themselves into the terrifying slaughter. They used their lives in exchange for the continuation of Pangu realm and the survival of many weak creatures. Every time he thought of this, Du Xiaofu felt a deep reverence for those ancient experts. They were the heroes of the ancient era. Without their sacrifice, the 33 heavens would not exist today, and divine battle world would not have been preserved. Based on this train of thought, the existence who created the 3,000 boundless worlds would have fallen at the hands of the demon ancestor. The ancient era of life is long gone, but the demon race still exists. The ancient experts sacrificed themselves in exchange for the world's peace. This is Panga's Tao of all beings, which affected everyone. Du Xiaofu sighed slightly, and then a special aura rose from his body. He thought to himself, in this era, even if there is no Pango, no heavenly Lord Daluo, and no enlightened beings, there is still us. The heavy responsibility of exterminating the demon race will be inherited by us, and we will not rest until we die. As he thought about it, he didn't stop the slaughter in his hands. Under Du Xiaofu's lead, the experts of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds rushed into the depths of the 18 layers of hell with irresistible force. By the time they reached the 14th layer of hell, the demon army was almost completely wiped out. Millions of demons below the meditative realm had been killed. Some of the survivors had fled to various corners and could no longer pose a threat. As for the hundreds of demon clans from the Oblivion realm, they were all either dead or injured. Under Du Xiaofu's deliberate pursuit, almost no one could survive. Of course, Du Xiaofu wouldn't forget the existence of two people, Dongli Qihuang and Shan Yin. Long ago, the two demon generals had fled as soon as they realized the situation was unfavorable. By now, they'd probably been one step ahead of them and had ventured even deeper. Those two will die sooner or later, but first, we have to deal with the 9 demon generals. Du Xiaofu thought to himself, his cold aura spreading out in all directions. He would not allow the 9 demon generals to live and face Jiangchen. Chapter 29:58. The 9 demon generals were the strongest force in the demon race, second only to the Archfiend ancestor. If they were allowed to enter the 18th layer of hell, who knew what would happen when they encountered Jiangchen? Thus, Du Xiaofu felt that he had to kill them first. Only then would he have the greatest confidence to do more. However, his senior brother Liu Xiaoyu wasn't here. Xiaolong, Di Batian, Donghuang Taixin, Yanghua, and Lu Xintong had all left. Without the protection of those experts, Du Xiaofu didn't dare break the seal his senior brother had placed and release the 9 demon generals all at once. Even though Du Xiaofu's strength had increased greatly, he couldn't withstand the simultaneous attacks of the 9 demon generals. Marshal Uncle Du, let's continue deeper. Father should be back soon. As if reading Du Xiaofu's mind, Lu Jingyun, who was at the side, said to him. His father, Lu Xiaoyu, had entered the 18th layer of hell only to interfere with the Archfiend ancestor, not to fight him. Before he'd left, he'd sent a message to Lu Jingyun about his whereabouts. Lu Jingyun guessed that his father, Lu Xiaoyu, should be returning soon. Earlier, the Archfiend ancestor's roar had come from the depths of the 18th layer of hell. Good. Let's go. Du Xiaofu nodded at Lu Jingyun's words. Once senior apprentice brother Lu Xiaoyu returned, the death of the 9 great demon generals would also arrive. He didn't delay any longer, and he continued to lead the way and continued on his journey with the others. However, the experts didn't engage in any more bitter fighting. By now, the demon race had lost most of their battle strength and couldn't cause much of a stir. At Du Xiaofu's command, the immortal realm experts of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless domains didn't continue deeper. They wouldn't be of much help in the coming battles. Uncle Xiaolong and the others have already broken the seal of the 4th layer of hell. I wonder how many of the ancient experts they rescued survived. Lu Jingyun, who was walking side by side with Du Xiaofu, spoke up again as he advanced. When he said this, Du Xiaofu and the hundreds of meditative realm experts around him fell silent. Their hearts felt heavy. The ancient ancestors had sacrificed too much for the living of Pango world. Countless years had passed, so they'd arrived in the present world. The Yuan Phoenix, the blood ancestor's blood, had died because all its power, it had died. The 18 experts who sealed the great Tao must have, the demon realm experts, and demons. The number of those realm experts, the number of those who could carry on the heavenly demon world. Reverence that couldn't be restrained arose in the hearts of all the experts present here, and they felt the highest respect towards those 18 experts that had contributed everything to the Tao. The best way for us juniors to repay the kindness of our ancestors is to kill the demon ancestor and return peace to the world. We'll stop the flames of war from spreading. We'll stop the slaughter and let all the living beings in the world live in peace. A meditative realm expert of the 33 heavens sighed and said leisurely, "The ancient era had long since passed. Countless experts had fallen in that terrifying battle. However, some things had been passed down, and that was their love for all living beings. Because of the influence of Pangu's Tao, it was deeply imprinted in the bones of the experts of the 33 heavens. It was impossible to erase it. Although the Tao I cultivate is different from Pangu's Tao of living beings, it's not much different in essence." Du Xiaofu nodded. At the same time, he thought the same thing. Pangu's Tao of living beings was to protect all the living beings he created so that they could avoid calamity. Du Xiaofu's greatest desire since he started cultivating was to protect those he cared about and allow them to live in peace. From a certain perspective, Du Xiaofu's Tao was extremely similar to Pangu's Tao. He wanted his family, loved ones, and close friends to live in peace, so he naturally had to inherit the will of the ancient experts. He had to eradicate the demon race and vow to fight the demon ancestor to the end. Why hasn't father returned yet? Du Xiaofu and the others traveled without delay. After spending a considerable amount of time, they finally arrived at the 15th level of hell. At this time, Lu Jingyun's frown grew deeper and deeper, his face filled with endless worry. He glanced at the seal where the 9 demon generals were located. They were also being pulled along by an invisible strength, moving along with them. For many years, the 9 demon generals had been attacking ferociously. Terrifying attacks were launched one after another, fiercely crashing into the outer seal, trying to break free. The seal's light shield had dimmed a lot, and cracks were everywhere. It wouldn't be long before it was completely broken. "Senior brother, could it be that you've encountered some unforeseen event?" Du Xiaofu had long been on guard and said softly. Senior brother Lu Xiaoyu had been in the 18th level of hell for quite some time. For someone of his level of cultivation, it wouldn't take him too long to break free from these spatial barriers. Moreover, when they were in the 11th level of hell, they had already heard the demon ancestor's tragic roar. Obviously, Lu Xiaoyu had already attacked the demon ancestor and angered him. However, after such a long time, senior brother still hadn't returned. This made Du Xiaofu feel a little uneasy. Let's wait a little longer. If the Lord of the 3,000 upper worlds doesn't return after some time, we'll have to retreat first. A meditated Oblivion Realm expert from the 33 heavens spoke. Everyone nodded when they heard this. Among them, only Du Xiaofu's current cultivation was able to contend with the 9 demon generals. If Lu Xiaoyu delayed for too long, the Forgotten Realm powerhouses wouldn't be able to stop them. However, they weren't afraid. After all, the Dragon God, Debatian, and the others were still on their escape route. As long as they retreated in time, the 9 demon generals wouldn't be able to do much harm to them. Rumble. At this time, another terrifying rumble came from above, causing the entire 18th level of hell to shake violently. Such a commotion was no surprise to Du Xiaofu, Lu Jingyun, and the other powerhouses. It was obvious that Xiaolong, Debatian, Donghuang Taixian, Yanghua, and Lu Xintong had broken the seal of the 5th level of hell, freeing one of the powerhouses who was the Array Foundation. Brother Xiaolong and the others are doing well. Du Xiaofu looked up and muttered. Relatively speaking, rescuing the 18 powerhouses wasn't too difficult. Xiaolong and the others had Lu Xiaoyu's bloody saber, which was more than enough to break the seal. However, what was worrying was that the roar that came from the 18th level of hell hadn't been heard for a long time, and Lu Xiaoyu hadn't returned either. This didn't make sense. Let's get ready to retreat as soon as possible, lest more variables arise. After thinking for a while, Du Xiaofu looked at the many powerhouses around him and said, the 9 demon generals still needed some time to break the seal, but Du Xiaofu didn't dare to take the risk. The best thing to do now was to retreat first and wait for senior brother Lu Xiaoyu to come back before making the next step. If something unusual really happened, even senior brother Lu Xiaoyu would have a hard time dealing with it. As for them, if they didn't have enough room to react, They would be caught off guard and inestimable losses would be incurred. Du Xiaofu wasn't willing to accept such an outcome. All right. At the side, Lu Jingyun nodded and stopped in his tracks. Hundreds of powerhouses steadied themselves and no longer cared about the 9 demon generals. All of them walked in unison, ready to retreat out of the 18th level of hell. Chi, right at this moment, Du Xiaofu sensed a slight ripple in the void. If it weren't for the great improvement in his cultivation, he wouldn't have been able to notice this subtle movement at all. He looked back and saw a man in green slowly stepping out of the void and appearing in front of him. Senior brother. Du Xiaofu was pleasantly surprised and called out. Upon hearing his words, the other meditative forgetfulness powerhouses turned around instantly. That's right. The man who suddenly appeared was the Lord of the 3,000 Great Worlds, Du Xiaofu's senior brother Lu Xiaoyu. Seeing his appearance, many experts were overjoyed. Since he was able to come back in time, it meant that there weren't too many variables. However, when everyone looked at Lu Xiaoyu's face, they found that his eyebrows were slightly furrowed, as if he was worried about something. When they saw this scene, Du Xiaofu and the others looked at each other in dismay, and their hearts were pounding. Could it be that something unexpected had really happened? Senior brother, did something happen? Du Xiaofu immediately stepped forward and looked at Lu Xiaoyu as he asked. He stared at Lu Xiaoyu without blinking, trying to figure out something from the change in his expression. Just a small change. Lu Xiaoyu didn't hide anything. He nodded and said to the crowd, "The demon ancestor's recovery is much faster than I thought. When I attacked him, I found that his power was extremely terrifying. He's not far from his peak." As he spoke, the worry on his face deepened, but he immediately relaxed. How is the demon ancestor now? Du Xiaofu raised his eyebrows and asked Lu Xiaoyu. He was surprised by his senior brother's words. Normally, all of the demon ancestor's movements should have been under his senior brother Lu Xiaoyu's control. There shouldn't have been too much of a deviation. Looking at his senior brother's expression, Du Xiaofu faintly felt that it might not be a small change, but something that could have a huge impact. The demon ancestor's power had unknowingly recovered greatly. Even his senior brother didn't know about it. Perhaps there was something out of the ordinary about this. Don't worry about it for now. Although things have exceeded my expectations, it's all under control. The demon ancestor won't be able to do anything for a while. Lu Xiaoyu waved his hand gently and said. The demon ancestor's power had exceeded his expectations, but under Lu Xiaoyu's attack, he was still greatly disturbed at the critical moment. As such, it would still take a lot of time for him to recover to his peak. That's good. Du Xiaofu heaved a sigh of relief, and his heart relaxed. Since his senior brother said so, it shouldn't be too big of a problem. As for the specifics, he could only take one step at a time and deal with whatever came his way. Boy, you've finally broken through. You've comprehended very quickly. Lu Xiaoyu suddenly changed the topic and looked at Du Xiaofu with a smile. He saw through the purple-robed youth's cultivation at a glance. Even the little black dot branded on the youth's origin spirit in his mind couldn't escape his eyes. For Lu Xiaoyu, who had reached the Pathfinder realm in his early years, this situation could only mean one thing. Du Xiaofu had successfully taken that step into the Pathfinder realm. This is all thanks to senior brother's guidance. Du Xiaofu bowed and saluted Lu Xiaoyu. Du Xiaofu had indeed benefited a lot from his senior brother's explanation of Pengu, Heavenly Lord Absolute Luo, the demon ancestor, and his own Tao. Without his senior brother's explanation, Du Xiaofu felt that he would have to take a lot of detours if he had to rely on his own comprehension. I only gave you a little bit of advice. Even if some ordinary people were to understand these principles, it wouldn't be too difficult. The most important thing is that your own will and conviction are strong. Only then can you truly walk into a new realm. Lu Xiaoyu said with a faint smile. When Lu Jingyun, Lu Yuxiao, Lu Ying, Long Ke, Long Su, and many other third-level meditative realm experts heard this, they all nodded their heads at the same time, each and every one of them like chicks pecking at rice. They fully agreed with Lu Xiaoyu because if it wasn't for Du Xiaofu's strong will, unshakable conviction, and unyielding will, it would absolutely be impossible for Du Xiaofu to step into the half-step Tao enlightened realm so easily. If it were that easy, they would have reached that step long ago after so many years. they wouldn't still be stuck in the third stage of meditative realm. Even so, when Du Xiaofu broke through, he suffered a terrifying ordeal and almost died. At the same time, many experts were frightened. Our temperament still needs to be tempered even more. An old man with a white beard sighed softly and said. When the others heard this, they nodded again in agreement. Breaking through the Pathfinder realm and engraving one's own Tao wasn't just about the fusion of power or sufficient comprehension. Most importantly, it was about tempering one's temperament. Du Xiaofu was much younger than any of them, but the things he'd experienced were things none of them had ever experienced before. It was no wonder that the purple-robed youth had surpassed countless people in just a few thousand years of cultivation. He stood towering above countless beings in the 33 heavens and the 3,000 universes. Senior brother, given my current strength, do you think I can kill Jiangchen? Du Xiaofu's sudden question made the experts present perk up their ears. In their imaginations, Du Xiaofu would need to complete his Tao before he could contend with Jiangchen. However, there wasn't much time left. The Fiend Ancestor's recovery was imminent. They couldn't wait for Du Xiaofu to fully mature. Thus, everyone perked up, eager to hear what the master of the 3,000 universes, Lu Xiaoyu, had to say. You little brat. Lu Xiaoyu couldn't help but laugh. He stared at Du Xiaofu for a moment, then retracted his smile and said solemnly, I never expected you to reach the Pathfinder realm in the shortest time possible. That's too difficult for you. Before the Fiend Ancestor fully recovers, it's practically impossible. Therefore, when the real battle begins, I'll be the one to deal with the Fiend Ancestor. Before he fully recovers, I'm confident I'll be able to exhaust him. When that happens, I'll need Xiaolong, Master, Big Brother, Xintong, and the others to take action together. Once the Fiend Ancestor is completely suppressed, it'll be your turn to kill him. At the end of his speech, Lu Xiaoyu's expression also showed a bit of ruthlessness. From this, it was clear that his battle with Jiangchen would be incredibly fierce. Even he himself would have to face a great challenge. So that's how it is. Du Xiaofu and the others understood. So Lu Xiaoyu's plan was for him to exhaust the Fiend Ancestor's strength, then have the half-step Pathfinder realm experts swarm him and keep him occupied. Finally, Du Xiaofu would be able to kill him. Of course, if your cultivation can reach a higher level, it'll be much easier for us to kill him. Lu Xiaoyu's tone changed, and he smiled at Du Xiaofu. Lu Xiaoyu didn't seem too afraid of the battle with the Fiend Ancestor. Everything was going according to plan. As long as there weren't any major variables, he didn't have to worry about the final outcome. The only thing he needed to pay attention to was the Fiend Ancestor's final counterattack. That was absolutely terrifying. Senior brother, I have another question. Du Xiaofu nodded. Suddenly, he opened his mouth and said, You told me a long time ago that I am the only one in this world who can truly kill the demonic ancestor. However, I don't understand why. This was something Du Xiaofu had always wondered, but Lu Xiaoyu had never told him. Naturally, Du Xiaofu didn't take the initiative to ask. But these past few years, the two devil attendants had been determined to kill him. Presumably, it was for the same reason as Lu Xiaoyu. He couldn't understand. The Fiend Ancestor had an indestructible body. Even Pangu and Exalted Celestial, two fiend gods from the primal chaos, couldn't kill him. How could he possibly do it? This was indeed an inexplicable matter. Father, Lu Jingyun, Lu Yuxiao, Lu Ying, Long Ke, Long Su, and the other meditative realm experts all stared at Lu Xiaoyu like curious babies. That question wasn't only puzzling Du Xiaofu, but also puzzling in everyone's hearts. Like Du Xiaofu, they all wanted to know the answer. But obviously, Lu Xiaoyu didn't intend to tell them now. The corners of the azure-robed man's mouth curled into an unfathomable smile, and he said two words that almost made everyone spit out blood at the same time. Guess. Chapter 29:59. Du Xiaofu rubbed his nose. Facing senior brother Lu Xiaoyu's teasing expression, he almost fainted. Not only him, but many of the surrounding experts also dug their ears, feeling a little dizzy. The Lord of the 3,000 boundless worlds actually had such a childish side to him. At this moment, everyone felt that their brains had short-circuited. They were clearly chatting seriously just now. Why were they suddenly being teased? Don't be like this. Seeing everyone's expressions, Lu Xiaoyu coughed lightly and explained, these things will naturally be known when the time comes. There's no need to rush now. After he said this, everyone's expressions relaxed a little. Du Xiaofu did not ask anymore. Senior brother Lu Xiaoyu naturally had his reasons for not telling him for now. Xiaolong and the others are not slow either. They have already entered the 6th layer of hell. Then, Lu Xiaoyu released the power of his primordial spirit and learned the current situation of Xiaolong, Dibatian, Donghuang Taixian, Yanggua, and Lu Xintong. The 5 of them were not slow. With the help of blood, they broke through layer after layer of seals and entered the 6th layer of hell. This was the mission that Lu Xiaoyu gave them. With the 5 of them working hard, they broke through layer after layer very quickly. Senior brother, can you sense if the 5 experts who broke through the seals are still alive? Du Xiaofu could also sense some specific things and knew the movements of Xiaolong and the others. However, compared to Lu Xiaoyu's perception, it was still a little vague. He really wanted to know how many of the 5 experts who were rescued had survived. Hearing Du Xiaofu's question, Lu Xiaoyu let out a soft sigh. Then, he said in a low voice, the powerhouses in the 1st, 2nd, and 4th levels of hell have all perished. However, the other 2 experts still have their auras. This made many of the experts present look solemn. At the same time, they could not help but feel a deep pain in their hearts. Those were the experts from ancient times who had broken through the 5 layers of hell. However, only 2 people in the 3rd and 5th layers survived. There were still 13 layers of hell. According to this probability, only 6 or 7 people would be able to walk out of the seals alive in the end. This made everyone feel heavy. The losses caused by the ancient war were too great. While everyone was feeling gloomy, Lu Xiaoyu's next words gave them a heavy blow. The 2 seniors who survived are also on the verge of death. If we don't treat them, I'm afraid they can only face the fate of death. Lu Xiaoyu's eyes narrowed as he solemnly said. He sensed that the 2 experts were put in the independent space word by Xiaolong. And the 2 experts, of course. But they were in was of their words word there. After countless years, therein is their body was, you must save them. They are the ancestors of all living beings, the protectors of the 33 heavens. Since there is still a day when they can see the light of day again, how can we not open our eyes and look at this wonderful world? Du Xiaofu clenched his fists and gritted his teeth as he spoke. That's right. Once we have completely eradicated the demon race and defeated the demon ancestor, we must take those surviving ancient experts and show them the world. We must show them that all their efforts in ancient times were not in vain. The eyes of some of the elders of the 33 heavens were already red and sparkling. In the past, when the world was still peaceful, no one knew of the sacrifices made by those ancient sages. But with the constant movements of the demon race in these past years, many secrets emerged once more and became known to countless beings. Everyone's hearts were naturally filled with boundless reverence. They hated that they could not have been born in ancient times and fought side by side with the heroes of the past. 3 out of 5. If we want those 3 fallen ancestors to rest in peace, we must defeat the demon race. Du Xiaofu said in a deep voice, his knuckles cracking. Then, 2 sharp lights surged out from his eyes. Like 2 sharp swords, they pierced through the void and 2 chaotic black holes appeared. It was incomparably terrifying. He cast his gaze into the distance. That was where the 9 great demon generals were sealed. Everything that the demon race has done in the ancient times must be paid back in the present age. We must use their blood to wash away the calamity that the beings of Pengu world suffered in the past. After Du Xiaofu finished speaking, there was a clang and the heavenly palace of purple gold appeared in his hand. It released a bright light and a terrifying aura of sharpness surged. As Du Xiaofu's strength increased, the grade of the heavenly palace of purple gold also increased. It was 1,000 times more terrifying than before. Since you're ready, junior brother, let's begin the hunt. Between Lu Xiaoyu's brows, a substantial killing intent spread out. He suddenly flicked his finger and a blade light flew out, chopping towards the seal around the 9 great demon generals. Rip, under Lu Xiaoyou's attack, the seal that was unbreakable for the 9 great demon generals was easily torn apart like tofu, shattering into pieces of energy and disintegrating. Swish, 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 swish. The moment they broke free of the seal, the 9 great demon generals soared into the sky and quickly fled into the distance. They didn't dare to stay for a moment and fled with infinite fear. What a joke! At this moment, the Lord of the 3,000 Worlds, Lu Xiaoyu, was present. If they wanted to live, they could only flee with all their might. Can you escape? The corners of Lu Xiaoyou's mouth curved into a smile as he spoke with a cold aura. In his eyes, the 9 great demon generals were no different from 9 slightly larger ants. Now was not the ancient era. After their strength was greatly reduced, they couldn't even compare to half-step Dao-raising realm experts, let alone Lu Xiaoyu at his peak strength. Junior brother, I'll leave the rest to you. Lu Xiaoyu didn't look at Du Xiaofu, but said to him, leave it to me. Before the 9 great demon generals enter the 18th layer of hell, none of them will survive. Du Xiaofu snorted coldly and said in a low voice. Then, with the purple-gold heavenly tower in hand, he slowly attacked. After breaking through, Du Xiaofu's speed had reached the extreme, and it didn't take long for him to catch up to the desolate demon general. Do you think I'll let you escape? These words came out of Du Xiaofu's mouth as he slashed down with his sword, bringing with it boundless swordlight that cut through all obstacles and reached the desolate demon general's back in an instant. The sword light was so terrifying that it seemed to be able to destroy the world. In an instant, the entire world was cut open, and a terrifying chaotic passage appeared that stretched all the way to the desolate demon general's position. This was the first time Du Xiaofu attacked after breaking through to half-step Dao-raising realm, and he displayed his terrifying side. The boundless power was mixed with his own Dao, and there was a strange charm circulating around it that was different from all the laws and logos in the world. Du Xiaofu, how dare you stop me? The desolate demon general suddenly shouted, incomparably furious. Without thinking, he turned around and raised the blood fiend axe in his hand into the sky. It enlarged countless times, and was even more majestic than the world's largest mountain. It directly covered half of the sky and came crashing down. Rumble. The entire world trembled and shook under this axe, and the void disintegrated one after another, shattering into pieces. The desolate demon general was really angry, but Du Xiaofu's strength made him tremble, so he didn't dare to lower his guard in the slightest. He blocked it with all his strength. After a short while, the 2 absolutely terrifying attacks collided and then exploded. Chi 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 chi. Du Xiaofu's sword light was incomparably bright, and in an instant, it cut through the desolate demon general's axe shadow. It was as if it had cut through a mountain, and it made a terrifying sound. At the same time, accompanied by the endless power of shattering, the entire world was filled with a terrifying aura. Everything that came into contact with was turned into chaos and nothingness, annihilated into dust. The 2 different forces frantically attacked and devoured each other. In the end, Du Xiaofu's sword light dimmed by more than half, but at this time, the desolate demon general's axe shadow had been completely destroyed. The blood fiend axe's main body also returned to his hand after a huge tremor. Du Xiaofu's sword light's momentum didn't decrease, and it fiercely chopped down, heading straight for the desolate demon general's head. Ah ah ah! The desolate demon general let out a terrifying roar from his mouth, piercing through gold and splitting stone. He shouted arrogantly, and the demonic chi all over his body surged. All of his strength was mobilized by him, forming a powerful defense that pervaded the surface of his body. At this time, it was already too late to dodge Du Xiaofu's sword light. The desolate demon general could only use all of his strength to carry out the final defense. Rumble. It was just that in the midst of a terrifying rumble, his figure was thoroughly chopped by the sword light, like a piece of rock being struck flying out. Outside his body, that protective shield formed from demonic chi also collapsed all of a sudden. Puwerk, the desolate demon general, sprayed out a mouthful of fiend blood from his mouth, his eyes instantly turning a few shades grayish-white. Du Xiaofu's strength was too strong. No idea how many times stronger compared to the past. far from what the desolate demon general currently could compare to. With such a collision, he suffered quite a bit of injury. But fortunately, he laid down that layer of defense at the last moment, and Du Xiaofu's swordlight also had the majority of its power dissipated by his axe shadow, because it did not bring him too serious of an injury. I said before, you can't escape. Opposite, Du Xiaofu opened his mouth coldly once more, taking another step out, heading straight for the desolate demon general. Layer after layer of boundless energy erupted from his body, like a deep abyss, incomparably vast. Du Xiaofu, this general must kill you. The desolate demon general roared, unable to contain his anger. The hatred in his heart towards Du Xiaofu had already reached the point where it could not be any greater. This purple-robed youth's growth was too fast. From when they first met, his cultivation was only comparable to the second stage of meditative oblivion realm. All the way until now, he had already reached the half-step carrier realm. This made the desolate demon general more and more furious the more he thought about it. The existence that was like a tiny ant in front of him back then was actually able to cause such terrifying damage to him. He could not help but feel endless regret. If he had known that this would happen, even if he had to give it his all back then, he would have cut down Du Xiaofu under his axe first. But this kind of regret was clearly too late now. The desolate demon general did not have time to think more. Du Xiaofu raised his sword and attacked again. Origin Void Slaying Sword, kill. Such a long roar came out of Du Xiaofu's mouth, shaking the sky like thunder, the roar splitting heaven and earth. He immediately unleashed his strongest killing move. Endless origin power gathered crazily, and with his body as the center, it started to spin rapidly. Within this energy, there was the origin energy of laws and the origin energy of the great Tao. Du Xiaofu mixed them together, using the two attributes of yin and yang to divide them, and then finally fused them together to form the most terrifying sword. Buzz, buzz, buzz. When this sword light was formed, a domineering aura appeared in the void. Above the sword light, the power of the great Tao flowed endlessly, showing the most perfect laws and principles, terrifying for no reason. Uncle Master Du's current strength is really frightening. In the distance, Lu Jingyun, Lu Yuxiao, Lu Ying, Long Ke, Long Su, and the others all looked at this sword in shock, their hearts unable to calm down. Every time the Yuqing Divine Emperor breaks through, it is incomparably terrifying. This time, he has reached the half-step carrier realm, and it is even more so. If the 9 demon generals were to fight him alone, they would really be annihilated one by one. An old man from the 33 heavens spoke. Everyone could see how terrifying Du Xiaofu's current strength was. Although these people could not understand the power contained in Du Xiaofu's sword, they could tell that the powerful desolate demon general could no longer be arrogant in front of him. My junior brother is naturally not an ordinary person. Otherwise, after so many years in the divine martial world, why would I choose him? Lu Xiaoyu quietly watched the situation on the battlefield as he muttered to himself. Du Xiaofu was someone he had his eyes on, and along the way, he had never disappointed him. On the other hand, the purple-robed youth had only exceeded his expectations, bringing shock and surprise to the world time and time again. Now that he had displayed such strength, Lu Xiaoyu was naturally very happy to see it. Under such circumstances, many experts from the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds watched the battle with relaxed expressions. However, unlike these people, the other 8 demon generals, except for the desolate demon general, each of them had a heavier heart than the last. Du Xiaofu is not the same as before. If the desolate demon general fights him alone, I'm afraid he will lose. The blood god demon general's eyes were deep as he fled while looking at the situation behind him. If I knew that kid would reach such a level so quickly, I would have killed him back then no matter what. The Ming Luo demon general's face was so dark that it was about to drip water. Like the desolate demon general, he was extremely angry. The other demon generals were also feeling the same. They were all filled with hatred for Du Xiaofu. When most of them first met Du Xiaofu, that kid was just an ant-like existence. However, things had changed and the situation had been reversed. If any of the demon generals were to fight him alone, it would be difficult for them to escape. Let's attack together. Otherwise, it won't be long before we are all killed by him. The fierce locust demon general said, his words brewing a heavy killing intent. For the 9 great demon generals, the only way to survive now was to join forces to prevent Du Xiaofu from killing them one by one. If we join forces, Lu Xiaoyu will not stand idly by. On the other side, the fleeing shadow demon general said coldly, his whole body shrinking in the dark hood. As he spoke, he glanced in the direction of Lu Xiaoyu. His whole body involuntarily trembled with deep fear. Hearing the words of the fleeing shadow demon general, the other 7 demon generals fell into a moment of silence. As the fleeing shadow demon general had said, Lu Xiaoyu would not sit idly by and watch them join forces to deal with Du Xiaofu. The reason why he had not killed the 9 of them was that he wanted to use them as sacrifices for Du Xiaofu's sword. Just like what Long Xian had said at the beginning, the 9 of them had been treated like little piglets. Now was the time to be released from the cage. The thoughts of the 8 demon generals spun like lightning, each of them thinking of many things. They really wanted to swarm up and take down Du Xiaofu, but if Lu Xiaoyu attacked from the side, even if the 9 of them joined forces, they would still have no chance. He was a powerhouse at the peak of his strength. Even if the demon ancestor appeared now, he might not be a match for him. We can't care so much. If we don't kill Du Xiaofu, we won't be able to live either. Even if Lu Xiaoyu wants to interfere, we have to think of a way to kill Du Xiaofu first. After a long while, the demon general Duo Yu seemed to have made the most firm decision and said coldly. He quickly communicated with the other 7 and came up with a plan. He vowed to cause great trouble to Lu Xiaoyu and Du Xiaofu's plan. Let's go. Then, the Scarlet Flame Demon General's body suddenly stopped. With a wave of his arm, the 8 great demon generals all moved together and charged towards Du Xiaofu. Terrifying demon chi surged in the void, like balls of black clouds oppressing the heavens and earth. It was incomparably terrifying. The 8 demon generals all had the same goal, and that was to take down Du Xiaofu. To the demon race, the purple-robed young man was a must-kill. If they could kill him, even if the 9 great demon generals all fell, all of Lu Xiaoyu's plans would be in vain. In order to achieve this goal, they decided to take a risk. No matter how a lamb to the slaughter jumps, how can it change its fate? Seeing the actions of the 8 demon generals, Lu Xiaoyu said softly from afar, a mocking smile on his lips. Of course, he could see through the thoughts of the 8 great demon generals, but in the face of absolute strength, no matter how beautiful their thoughts were, they were nothing but a dream that only existed in beautiful dreams. Today, this hunt was prepared for Du Xiaofu. Lu Xiaoyu had enough strength to guarantee that the 9 great demon generals would not have the slightest chance to resist. Chapter 2960. As Lu Xiaoyu spoke, his eyes turned cold as he looked at the 8 demon generals' actions. Right at this moment, Du Xiaofu and the desolate fiend demon general collided once more. The Origin Void Slayer sword carried a tremendous force and directly blasted apart the desolate fiend demon general's hatchet shadow. Following that, the sword light's momentum did not decrease. It suddenly hit the desolation demon general's figure and sent him flying. When Du Xiaofu executed this move with his current strength, it was incomparably terrifying. It possessed the power to break apart everything in the world. A single sword tore open the chest of the desolate fiend demon general, revealing the moving organs within. In the void, demonic blood splattered, corroding everything and emitting a chaotic aura. Du Xiaofu died. At this moment, the Blood God Demon General, Ming Luo Demon General, Qi Yin Demon General, Xiong Locust Demon General, and Duo Yu Demon General had already arrived. Just as Du Xiaofu defeated the Desolation Demon General and before he could retract his aura, they arrived with an earth-shattering attack. The 5 experts used almost all of their strength, condensing it into a terrifying and boundless energy mountain. It directly pressed down, as if it could crush everything in its path. The entire world trembled under such an attack. Rumbling sounds were incessant, and chaos appeared one after another. The monstrous demonic aura condensed in one place. It had the thickest aura, destroying everything and crushing the heavens. Block Lu Xiaofu. As long as we can delay him for a while, we can finish off that brat Du Xiaofu. In another direction, the Luan Su Demon General, evading Shadow Demon General, and Shrouded Soul Demon General shouted. Their actions were different from the other five. Instead, they blocked the path between Du Xiaofu and Lu Xiaofu. The 8 demon generals' thoughts were simple. They wanted to use 3 demon generals to block Lu Xiaofu with all their strength. As long as they could buy some time and give the other 5 an opportunity, they might be able to kill Du Xiaofu. Dreams are plentiful, but reality is bony. On the other side, the corner of Long K's mouth curled into a strange smile. Looking at the actions of the 8 great demon generals, he could not help but ridicule. Just 3 demon generals, and you want to stop Uncle Lu? Isn't this a little too whimsical? In Long False knowledge, Lu Xiaoyu's strength was simply not something those 9 great demon generals could match. Even if all 9 of them worked together, they wouldn't be able to stop him, not even for a moment. The other party wanted to hold Uncle Lu back, so that they could forcefully kill Uncle Du. This plan was probably going to fail. Kill. The 5 demon generals howled and moved ferociously. Above the mountain peak formed by the terrifying energy, a boundless aura spread out. It was like a raging sea, roaring without end. Under the pressure of this power, even Du Xiaofu, who was in the middle of it, found it difficult to breathe. Although the 9 great demon generals had lost a lot of their strength, the 5 of them attacking with all their strength still made him feel an incomparably huge pressure. Du Xiaofu had just broken through to the half-step Dao realm, so it was impossible for him to be arrogant enough to think that he could fight against 5 alone. That's a pretty good idea, but how could I let you succeed so easily? Du Xiaofu was not a fool, so how could he just stand there and let the 5 demon generals kill him? His entire body's aura surged, giving off a vast and majestic aura. In a hurry, he set up layer after layer of tight protection, covering his body within. At the same time, Du Xiaofu let out a terrifying dragon roar. The cyan spirit armor was unleashed by him, transforming into the body of a cyan dragon. It was like a terrifying mountain ridge lying across the void. When the 5 great demon generals attacked him, Du Xiaofu simply did not have any extra time to prepare a new attack. He could only use these methods in a short period of time. Rumble. The terrifying energy mountain collapsed, carrying with it the momentum to crush everything, valiant and unstoppable. The energy light shield outside Du Xiaofu's body collapsed layer by layer, turning into fragments and scattering in all directions. He didn't care about this at all, and he allowed the terrifying energy to descend like a mountain and drown him within it. Relying on the strength of the cyan spirit armor, Du Xiaofu was confident that he could block the full attack of the 5 demon generals in a short period of time. In the face of absolute power, any method is futile. On the other side, Lu Xiaoyu glanced at Du Xiaofu's actions and could not help but smile. Seeing the other 3 demon generals blocking in front of him, he raised a palm and slowly pushed it forward. This palm strike looked ordinary and did not emit any energy fluctuations. However, in the next moment, the demon general Luan Su, the demon general evading Shadow, and the demon general Hun felt an overwhelming force attacking them. In an instant, it descended on their bodies. This was only the fluctuation produced by the terrifying power. The most terrifying power had yet to truly descend, and such a ferocious result had already occurred. Block it! The demon general Luan Su shouted loudly. His originally ethereal figure became even more elusive, as if he was about to fade away. The great force that Lu Xiaoyu had unleashed carried a terrifying Dao force, making it difficult for him to breathe. Block it! We just need to buy some time. The demon general evading Shadow and the demon general Hun Su also let out a loud howl. They had activated all of their strength and used all of their strength to block it. The power of the 3 entangled together, forming a terrifying light screen. It was as if the Milky Way had descended from the 9 heavens. It blocked in front of them, wanting to block Lu Xiaoyu's attack. Rumble. Just as the 3 demon generals organized a monstrous defense, a dull sound spread out. It was as if thunder had struck in June. It was earth-shattering. At this moment, the firmament and the earth trembled. The rules of the great Tao prostrated themselves. All of the invisible order in the 18 levels of hell was disrupted in the blink of an eye. It was as if they were about to be wiped out. Under the terrifying impact, the terrifying light screen formed by the Demon General Luan Su, the Demon General Hun Su, and the Demon General Hun Su looked like a festering dam. Under the violent impact of the flood, it did not have the slightest ability to resist and directly collapsed. Then, the flood became even more powerful. It flowed for 1,000 miles and moved ferociously. It continued to surge into the distance. The three demon generals were like three small worms. They rolled and swayed in the endless mountain flood, unable to control themselves. Lu Xiaoyou's power was too powerful and terrifying. The endless energy swallowed them, and they were about to suffocate. Oh no! On Du Xiaofu's side, the 5 demon generals who were besieging the Azure Dragon's body also became nervous at this moment. Their hearts were filled with endless shock. The 5 of them looked over and saw a terrifying wave surging over. It carried an unstoppable force and was about to swallow them whole. Rumble. By the time the 5 great demon generals reacted, the boundless wild tide had already arrived and wrapped around the 5 figures in an instant. Immediately after, the energy mountain that was crushing Du Xiaofu's body was also scattered and immediately disintegrated. It did not even have the slightest ability to resist. Phew! Du Xiaofu felt the pressure on his body loosen. The Azure Dragon's body transformed, and he returned to his human form. He watched in horror as the 8 demon generals were swept up into the sky by the terrifying power. They were no different from a few bedbugs. In another direction, the desolate fiend demon general, who had been suppressed by Du Xiaofu, dodged and was not swept up. One could see that the desolate fiend demon general's eyes were filled with intense shock, as if he was about to die from shock. They had never truly seen Lu Xiaoyou's strength, but in the estimation of the 9 demon generals, he was probably much stronger than them at their peak. But from the looks of it, it wasn't just much stronger, it was simply too much stronger. Is Lu Xiaoyu really at the Dao Carrier realm? Taking advantage of this opportunity, the desolate fiend demon general did not dare to stay any longer. He quickly left Du Xiaofu and rushed towards the 16th level of hell. Now that Lu Xiaoyu was present, being able to escape with his life was the best outcome. How could he have the chance to resist? Do you think I'll let you escape? Du Xiaofu's eyes narrowed as he once again brazenly attacked. The 9 demon generals were specially left behind by his senior brother Lu Xiaoyu for him to use as a training ground. Du Xiaofu naturally would not let go of such an opportunity. His figure rushed up and quickly chased after the desolate fiend demon general. He waved the purple-gold heavenly tower in his hand, and a resplendent sword light shot out. You'd better not jump around too much. Otherwise, I don't mind personally sending you on your way. On the other side, after Lu Xiaoyu had disintegrated the defense and attack of the 8 great demon generals, he said these words. Then, with a light wave of his sleeve, the energy waves that filled the sky instantly dissipated and disappeared, as if they had never appeared. The 8 demon generals, who were unable to control themselves, immediately rushed out one by one, and rushed into the distance without daring to look back. Lu Xiaoyou's strength was terrifying. The terrifying power contained in his every move was too oppressive. To the 9 demon generals, Lu Xiaoyu was no different from a god. He was powerful and looked down on the world. Run, run, run. The Blood God Demon General, Underworld Demon General, Scarlet Flame Demon General, Fierce Locust Demon General, Serene Demon General, Luan Su Demon General, Evading Shadow Demon General, and Shroud Demon General were in a panic, and they quickly fled like stray dogs. They didn't dare to have any superfluous thoughts. Now, besides running for their lives, they didn't have any thoughts of causing trouble. It was impossible to kill Du Xiaofu. With Lu Xiaoyu present, even if the demon ancestor came, it would be very difficult to kill Du Xiaofu with his own strength. To think that we, the 9 demon generals, have been reduced to little pigs to be slaughtered. At this moment, Ming Luo Demon General's heart was filled with endless sorrow. During the ancient times, the 9 great demon generals rebuked the heavens and the earth, and they roamed freely through the world without anyone being able to stop them. How ferocious and peerless was that! But in the present world, after breaking free from the seal of the 18 layers of hell, they wanted to follow the demon ancestor to conquer the 33 heavens again and turn the world into a demon's domain. Who would have thought that in this generation, when there was no Pango, no exalted celestial absolute, and no dozens of other Tao givers, there would be a Lu Xiaoyu and a Du Xiaofu who all of the devil folk wanted to kill. The fate of the 9 demon generals had also taken a bizarre turn. From being invincible in ancient times, they were now fleeing like rats. It was really sad and ridiculous. Lu Xiaoyu won't attack us easily. Once we find an opportunity, we will immediately kill Du Xiaofu. This time, we can't be careless. The Scarlet Flame Demon General's eyes narrowed as he transmitted his voice to the others. When Lu Xiaoyu attacked just now, the 8 of them didn't suffer much damage. Obviously, Lu Xiaoyu didn't want to kill them with his own hands. He just left the 9 demon generals for Du Xiaofu to practice on. Understanding this situation, the Scarlet Flame Demon General felt that there would always be an opportunity to combine their strength to deal a fatal blow to Du Xiaofu. Good. It's settled. The fierce Locust Demon General gritted his teeth and said hatefully. He quietly glanced back. Sure enough, the azure-robed man, Lu Xiaoyu, didn't have any intention of attacking them again. He just followed behind them from afar, watching the 9 demon generals' movements. After making a new round of plans, the 8 demon generals didn't say anything more. They all rushed forward, heading straight for the entrance of the 16th layer of hell. At the same time, everyone was secretly cheering for the Desolation Demon General in their hearts, hoping that he could hold on a little longer. Otherwise, the 9 of them would really be defeated one by Du Xiaofu. Kill. Behind the Desolation Demon General, Du Xiaofu slashed out with his sword, shaking heaven and earth. The sword trembled, and a bright light burst out. It was extremely frightening. Du Xiaofu, the Desolation Demon General, was incomparably angry. Du Xiaofu was chasing him closely, making it difficult for him to escape. After this purple-robed youth's strength rose greatly, it already far exceeded what he could handle. He was completely suppressing him. The Desolation Demon General was clear in his heart that if nothing unexpected happened, he would likely be the first of the 9 demon generals to be killed. But he didn't have the slightest better solution to all of this. I'll send you on your way first. There will come a day when your Lord Demon Ancestor will meet up with you all. Du Xiaofu said coldly, controlling the purple-gold heavenly tower to descend. At the same time, he let out a long shout from his mouth, severing 3 worlds. Voila! When this voice fell, the vault of heaven and earth trembled. But time and space seemed to have frozen, showing a sense of stagnation in their operations. The Desolation Demon General raised the great axe in his hand high, but he was unable to chop it down. Under the influence of Du Xiaofu's power, his movements became sluggish. It looked like his limbs had rusted, his movements becoming stiff. However, Du Xiaofu's sword light was not affected in the slightest. Under the Desolation Demon General's horrified gaze, it suddenly chopped onto his body. Poowork. Following a dull sound that spread out, the Desolation Demon General's body was abruptly split apart, split into 2 from the middle. These 2 halves of the body slowly fell to the sides, spraying out endless devil blood from within, dyeing heaven and earth red, corroding the void. A woo! A shrill howl echoed through the air. Under Du Xiaofu's gaze, from the Desolation Demon General's broken body, a cluster of scarlet light shot out to the sky, sweeping into the distance in a blink of an eye, wanting to escape. This was the Desolation Demon General's primordial spirit. After his physical body was chopped apart, he could no longer continue staying inside. The result of doing so could only be being crushed by Du Xiaofu together. Just a dying struggle. Du Xiaofu's lips curled into a sneer. He suddenly shook his purple robes and rushed out, chasing after the primordial spirit. When he passed by the Desolation Demon General's physical body, Du Xiaofu's aura burst forth, transforming into thousands of sharp sword lights. They spun and slashed wildly, slicing the 2 halves of the body into countless pieces that danced in the void. The Desolation Demon General can't hold on any longer. In front, the Blood God Demon General, Ming Luo demon general, and the other demon generals sensed this scene, and their hearts were incomparably bleak. The Desolation demon general's powerful strength was still unable to hold on for too long in Du Xiaofu's hands. That remaining primordial spirit would probably not be able to struggle any longer. The purple-robed youth's strength had increased too quickly. At this time, the demon generals' hearts were once again filled with intense regret. They only hated that they had underestimated Du Xiaofu back then, allowing him to escape again and again. Otherwise, with the combined strength of several demon generals, even if that kid had 100 lives, he would not be alive today. However, it was already too late to think about all this now. No matter how much regret the 8 demon generals felt, it was impossible for them to turn back time and choose again. Desolation cannot die. None of us 9 demon generals can die so easily. The blood god demon general's eyes were incomparably cold. It was as if his skin had been peeled off, and scarlet blood flowed from his body. He looked incomparably terrifying. He spoke with a heavy voice, speaking to the others around him. That's right. We must think of a way to stop Du Xiaofu. The red flame demon general also nodded solemnly, expressing his agreement with the Desolation demon general's words. There were a total of 9 demon generals. One death was one less. Once the Desolation demon general was killed first, it would be their turn next. If this continued, none of the 9 demon generals would be able to escape death in the end. Even though Lu Xiaoyu was eyeing them covetously from behind, constantly pressuring their nerves, they could not just sit and wait for death. Duo, you and I will attack together. Let's see if Lu Xiaoyu will interfere. If he sits and does nothing, then our chances of killing Du Xiaofu will be higher. The Blood God Demon General thought for a moment and said. The 8 demon generals exchanged glances and then all agreed to this method. Then, the Blood God Demon General and Duo Yu Demon General moved together, charging towards Du Xiaofu. Save Desolation's primordial spirit. We can't let him die in Du Xiaofu's hands. As they moved forward, the Blood God Demon General said to Duo Yu Demon General in a deep voice. At the same time, he glanced at Lu Xiaoyu in the distance and realized that he really had no intention of interfering. Such a situation made the 8 demon generals all heave a sigh of relief. In a situation where Lu Xiaoyu did not make a move, the 2 demon generals would fight Du Xiaofu at the same time. They would not be easily killed. In this way, they would have more opportunities to counterattack. Once they succeeded, even if Lu Xiaoyu attacked in anger, it would be useless. Kill. Thinking of this, the 2 demon generals moved brazenly. With unparalleled power, they charged towards Du Xiaofu. They wanted to save the Desolation demon general's primordial spirit before the purple-robed youth attacked again. Chapter 2961. Ming Luo Devil General, Qi Yin Devil General, Xiong Locust Devil General, and the others stopped in their tracks as they watched the Blood God Devil General and Duo Yu Devil General charge out. They thought it through by now. Since Lu Xiaoyu wasn't going to act against them and Du Xiaofu was going to hunt down the 9 of them alone, they would definitely not be defeated in a short time. So, they decided to stay and watch so that they could find an opportunity to kill Du Xiaofu. Father, those 2 devil generals have joined forces to deal with Martial Uncle Du. Do you want to interfere? Among the group of young people from the Lu clan, Lu Ro came to Lu Xiaoyu's side and looked at her father with her beautiful eyes. She knew that her martial Uncle Du's strength had improved greatly, but he'd only just stepped into the half-step Dao realm. Actually, because martial Uncle Du cultivated the 4 primordial laws at the same time, he might be slightly stronger than Uncle Yanghua and Aunt Xintong, but not by much. Facing the joint attack of 2 devil generals, Du Xiaofu might not be able to smoothly kill them. If that was the case, then there was no point in keeping these devil generals alive. There's no need to be anxious. Lu Xiaoyu stretched out his hand and rubbed his daughter's head when he heard her question. Your martial Uncle Du's strength is probably much stronger than you think. Besides that, he's just broken through and carved out his own Dao, but he's far from reaching perfection. He still needed more tempering, needed more comprehension. 2 devil generals attacking him at the same time isn't a bad thing. He'll definitely be able to deal with it. Lu Xiaoyu spoke with a smile on his face. Sister, don't worry. I'm confident in this matter. When it's time to act, I'll naturally interfere. The 9 devil generals are like turtles in a jar now, and they won't be able to cause much trouble. Lu Jingyuan chimed in from the side. It was just as he'd said. With his father, Lu Xiaoyu, holding down the fort, no matter how strong the 9 devil generals were, they wouldn't be able to do anything. Their martial uncle Du could fight 2 demon generals by himself, but he wouldn't lose. As for killing all 9 demon generals, there was no hurry. I'm already in the 15th layer of hell, and I'm not far from the 18th layer of hell. I'm really looking forward to seeing the devil ancestor's expression when he finds out that all of his devil generals have fallen. Long Fault suddenly laughed out loud as he said to the surrounding people. Hearing this, the others couldn't help but laugh. After so many years, the devil ancestor had made a comeback. Without Pango, Exalted Celestial, and the other Tao veiling experts, he had the greatest advantage over the 33 heavens. Perhaps even Fiend Alpha did not expect the world to have a Lu Xiaoyu and a Du Xiaofu. These 2 people had become the greatest nightmare of the devil race. Under their leadership, the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds had launched the most terrifying massacre of the devil race. Before Fiend Alpha completely recovered, everyone had enough confidence that they could make Fiend Alpha a loner, making the existence that dominated the ancient era and massacred the world feel resentful and angry. Next, let's watch Martial Uncle Du's performance, Lu Yuxiao said with a smile. Then, everyone stopped talking and focused their gazes on Du Xiaofu. In another direction, the 7 demon generals were also looking over, their expressions grave. Under their gazes, Du Xiaofu stepped on the meridian, as if he was stepping on the lifeline of heaven and earth, as if he was stepping on the rhythm of the great Tao. His entire person carried an indescribable charm. He chased after the desolate fiend demon general's primordial spirit, wanting to cut it down with his sword. But in his eyes, the blood god demon general and Duo demon general were also rushing over. Du Xiaofu didn't care about this. He continued to raise his sword and attack. A sword aura that reached the heavens and the earth shot out, brazenly slashing towards the desolate fiend demon general's primordial spirit. Du Xiaofu, don't you dare be so arrogant. The blood god demon general shouted from afar. His entire body emitted layers of crimson energy, with him as the center. From afar, it looked like a red cloud was flying over. In this boundless red cloud, there was a terrifying energy that could corrode everything. Kid, if you have the guts, fight the 2 of us. The Duo demon general's body was fleeting. Sometimes he was to the east, sometimes he was to the west, sometimes he was to the left, sometimes he was to the right. His figure was very difficult to grasp. It was extremely strange. But all of these actions were carried out with Du Xiaofu as the target. They were only waiting for the right time to strike. Oomph! Seeing the 2 demon generals rushing over, Du Xiaofu snorted again. He ignored them and continued to attack the desolate fiend demon general's primordial spirit. The broadsword in his hand vibrated terrifyingly, releasing a dazzling light that swept towards the red primordial spirit. Save me! At this time, the desolate fiend demon general's heart was filled with fear. He couldn't help but scream. He was running for his life, but Du Xiaofu was like a ghost, following closely behind him, unwilling to give up. Seeing the blood god demon general and the Duo demon general coming for him, the desolate fiend demon general did not hesitate and rushed towards the 2 of them. He wanted to borrow their strength to temporarily shake off Du Xiaofu's pursuit. You won't be able to escape death today. Just accept your fate. Du Xiaofu snorted coldly. His sword turned quickly, domineering and swift. In an instant, it was behind the desolate fiend demon general's primordial spirit. Kid, don't be so arrogant. The blood god demon general roared. The blood on his body turned even redder, looking indescribably pitiful. He waved his arm and the red cloud around him began to swirl. It quickly turned into a terrifying blood-red light sword. This light sword contained the most murderous aura in the world, causing one's scalp to tingle. At this critical moment, the blood god demon general's light sword rushed out, blocking the path between Du Xiaofu's sword and the desolate fiend demon general's primordial spirit. You won't be able to save the people I want to kill. Du Xiaofu let out a cold laugh. He controlled the terrifying sword light to smash down, ruthlessly colliding with the blood god demon general's blood-red light sword. Chi chi chi. The two completely different forces began to violently mix and entangle with each other, canceling each other out. The void was instantly filled with boundless energy. Runes of the great Tao flowed within, and there was also a trace of the power of the great Tao surging. This was Du Xiaofu's own Tao. After easily blocking the blood god demon general's attack, Du Xiaofu was about to continue his pursuit of the desolate fiend demon general. But at this time, the duo Yu demon general attacked from another direction in an extremely ghostly manner, causing Du Xiaofu to be unable to deal with him at all. If he tried to kill the desolate fiend demon general, he would definitely be injured by the duo Yu demon general. But if he turned around and fought with the duo Yu demon general, the desolate fiend demon general's primordial spirit would take the opportunity to escape. At that time, it would be much more difficult to kill him. You dare to show off your insignificant skills. If it was in the past, I would definitely not be your opponent. But now, things have changed. Just based on the two of you, how can you stop me? Du Xiaofu's eyes were cold. They were like two sharp swords, carrying with them a deep murderous intent. The duo Yu demon general's movements were incomparably strange. But to the current Du Xiaofu, it was not too hard to imagine. The changes in the trajectories were all under his control. Du Xiaofu sneered. After glancing at the desolate fiend demon general's primordial spirit, who was fleeing in a hurry, he charged straight at the duo Yu demon general. Brat, come and fight. Seeing this scene, the duo Yu demon general let out a sigh of relief. With Du Xiaofu heading in his direction, the desolate fiend demon general's life could be considered saved. However, in the next moment, the duo Yu demon general's pupils suddenly shrank. Just as he let out a sigh of relief, he was suddenly lifted up again. Swish, swish, swish. The purple-robed youth, Du Xiaofu, suddenly waved his arm. 9 shadows rushed out, growing in size with the wind. They were like 9 huge mountains, crushing the void. Rumble. These were 9 purple lightning profound cauldrons. They were incomparably ferocious and possessed the thickest aura. After Du Xiaofu broke through to the half-step Dao realm, he was pleasantly surprised to find that he could mobilize even more energy from the purple lightning profound cauldrons. When facing the duo Yu demon general, he directly struck out with the 9 cauldrons, crushing the desolate fiend demon general's primordial spirit. Bastard! On the other side, the blood god demon general roared, but it was already too late. Du Xiaofu's move was simply too fast, catching him off guard. The duo Yu demon general was also blocked by Du Xiaofu, and was unable to help the desolate fiend demon general. Rumble. The 9 divine lightning cauldrons whistled through the air, like 9 mountains that were about to move. An unparalleled aura was released, instantly imprisoning the void. Bolts of purple lightning fell from the sky like the 9 heavens, hanging in the sky. Every bolt of purple lightning that flowed out of the cauldrons caused the void to turn into chaos. The scene was incomparably terrifying. Run, run, run. Under the terrifying suppression of the 9 cauldrons, the desolate fiend demon general panicked to the extreme. The divine lightning gave him an unimaginable pressure, and the power of his primordial spirit was rapidly depleting. At this moment, the desolate fiend demon general only had one thought in his mind, and that was to escape, quickly escape. If he was a moment slower, with the power of the 9 cauldrons, his primordial spirit would be crushed to ashes in an instant. Run! The shadow of death shrouded the desolate fiend demon general's heart. He activated all the power in his primordial spirit and began to escape. However, the power of the 9 cauldrons was incomparably terrifying. How could the desolate fiend demon general, whose strength was greatly reduced and only had his primordial spirit left, escape? The 9 divine lightning cauldrons drew 9 strange trajectories. Under Du Xiaofu's control, they suppressed the desolate fiend demon general from all directions, sealing off every escape route. The purple lightning profound cauldrons that were as heavy as mountains were incomparably terrifying. When they released their aura, it was difficult to breathe. Subsequently, there was only a loud rumble. The 9 cauldrons collided with each other, presenting a chaotic scene. Heaven and earth seemed to have exploded, emitting a terrifying roar and trembling, almost collapsing. At the same time, the desolate fiend demon general's primordial spirit was also buried in the 9 cauldrons and could not be seen. Such a scene had truly stunned the remaining 8 great demon generals. For a moment, everyone was speechless, and all of them stared at the position of the 9 cauldrons. Not long after, there was a few whooshing sounds, and the 9 cauldrons all flew away, charging towards Du Xiaofu again. But there was no longer the figure of the desolate fiend demon general on the spot. His primordial spirit seemed to have disappeared into thin air. Desolate fiend is dead. The Ming Luo demon general, the Crimson Flame demon general, the Fierce Locust demon general, the Luan Su demon general, the Fleeing Shadow demon general, and the Hun Mian demon general who were watching the battle from afar all stared with wide eyes, somewhat unable to accept this result. Du Xiaofu's strength made them so shocked that they wanted to die. He actually killed the desolate fiend demon general unexpectedly under the encirclement of 2 great demon generals, annihilating his body and primordial spirit, thoroughly dying. Damn Du Xiaofu! The Ming Luo demon general cursed. He stepped out lightly, wanting to go forward and join in the battle against Du Xiaofu. But all of a sudden, he felt an ice-cold gaze sweep over him, causing Ming Luo demon general to feel boundless horror. His raised foot also instantly retracted in an instant. Lu Xiaoyu, the Crimson Flame demon general's entire body also tensed up, not daring to act rashly. That gaze just now was precisely from Lu Xiaoyu. With him present, it was really like a dream for everyone to want to swarm up to deal with Du Xiaofu. How can we, the 9 great demon generals, be so sullen? The Fierce Locust demon general gritted his teeth tightly. He was extremely resentful, but he was also extremely helpless. The 9 great demon generals had dominated the ancient times, and few people could stop them. But who would have thought that in this world after the ancient times, a small ant could actually kill them? The desolate fiend demon general became the first person to die, but his death also seemed to indicate the final outcome of the other 8 great demon generals. Such an outcome made them feel extremely sullen. They only hated that they were no longer at their peak. Otherwise, Du Xiaofu and Lu Xiaoyu would definitely die without a burial ground. At this time, the 6 demon generals watching the battle felt extremely miserable. They wanted to attack together to deal with Du Xiaofu, but when they thought of Lu Xiaoyu, who was watching covetously from the side, they could only give up and continue to wait for an opportunity. Uncle Master Du is using Uncle Lu's 9 purple lightning profound cauldrons. It's really powerful. On the other side, Long Su clicked his tongue in admiration, looking somewhat envious of Du Xiaofu. The 9 cauldrons were treasures. When Lu Xiaoyu was growing up in the early years, it was also a great killing weapon. Now that Du Xiaofu was controlling it, the power it could unleash was also extraordinary. According to Father, the 9 cauldrons weren't too strong back then. But under Uncle Lu's refinement, they naturally reached a higher level. Now that Uncle Master Du's cultivation has improved greatly, of course the 9 cauldrons are terrifying. Beside Long Su, Long Ke said with a smile. Hearing this, Lu Xiaoyu nodded lightly and didn't say anything. The 9 purple lightning profound cauldrons were indeed refined by him, and he also placed some restrictions on them. In the end, they were left in the divine martial world, prepared for Du Xiaofu. Under Lu Xiaoyu's arrangement, as Du Xiaofu's strength continued to increase, the 9 cauldrons would gradually gain more extraordinary power. The power it could unleash could reach the level of a normal Chaos Dao instrument. With Du Xiaofu's current cultivation, this was the time to unleash the full power of the cauldrons. With these 9 cauldrons, the Yu Qing Divine Emperor can easily fight against 3 demon generals, let alone 2. A meditative realm elder from the 33 heavens couldn't help but be speechless and exclaim. Fighting against 3 demon generals alone, that kind of power was terrifying enough. It was almost on par with the dragon god. Even though all of this could only be done with the help of external forces, not everyone had external forces to rely on. Du Xiaofu, I will tear you apart. Just as everyone was discussing, the blood god demon general let out another terrifying roar. He held a giant sword in his hand, and bloody light shot up into the sky. It looked like it was made of fresh blood, and its murderous aura exploded. Kill. Demon General Duo, you shouted as well. His entire body was filled with an unconcealable aura. His body floated as he approached Du Xiaofu again and again. The two of them displayed their best abilities in an attempt to kill Du Xiaofu. Next, I will send the two of you on your way. Du Xiaofu's eyes darkened, and his words were chilling. The broadsword in his hand slashed through the air, and ray after ray of sword light shot out. At the same time, the 9 purple lightning cauldrons were also summoned by him. They crushed the void and carried the power of thousands of pounds as they headed towards the 2 demon generals. One has to admit that Du Xiaofu, who had summoned the 9 purple lightning cauldrons, was far too terrifying. The restrictions of the 9 cauldrons were lifted, and they possessed the most powerful energy. They were completely suppressing the 2 demon generals. It wasn't hard for him to sense that the 9 purple lightning cauldrons were at a level that was far more terrifying than a true treasure of the laws. If that's the case, then they are truly Taoist instruments. Senior Brother's bloody sword should also be a Taoist instrument of the chaos level. The 9 cauldrons are not as good as the bloody sword, but they are not that far off. Du Xiaofu muttered in his heart. A ray of sword light forced the blood god demon general back, leaving a charred wound on his body. At the same time, under the pressure of the 9 purple lightning cauldrons, the ghostly duo Yu demon general was forced to reveal himself and fight. Under his suppression, how could the 2 demon generals have any extra resistance? After a few hundred rounds, the duo Yu demon general was hit by a purple lightning cauldron, and he spat out a mouthful of demon blood. On the other side, the blood god demon general's bloody body was cut by the sharp sword light. His left arm was also cut off. It was indescribably tragic. Du Xiaofu fought with all his strength. 1 against 2, he suppressed the 2 demon generals. And in the end, the blood god demon general was slashed down from the sky by his sword, falling from the sky. The duo Yu demon general was also surrounded by the 9 cauldrons and was crushed into a pile of meat. Not all of them are dead. Looking at the situation of the 2, Du Xiaofu said coldly, his eyes like lightning. His figure rushed out, and at the same time, the sword light in his hand slashed vertically. Accompanied by a whistling sound, the bodies of the 2 demon generals were cut into pieces. Their flesh and blood flew everywhere, and their primordial spirits were also killed. They couldn't be more dead. At this time, Du Xiaofu was like a demon god that slaughtered the heavens and slaughtered the earth. He revealed his extremely cruel side and was incomparably terrifying. Chapter 2962. Blood God Demon General and Yu Duo Demon General died under Du Xiaofu's ferocious attacks. That purple-robed youth stood in the air, as if he was the most terrifying person in the world, possessing the strength to destroy everything. Ben Shi's body was stained with endless demon blood, making him look like a god of death. Watching the end of everything, the remaining Ming Luo Demon General, Fierce Locust Demon General, Yu Duo Demon General, Luan Su Demon General, Fleeing Shadow Demon General, and Soul Mist Demon General all felt their scalps go numb. Du Xiaofu's strength was too shocking. That kid was incomparably terrifying. He fought 2 great demon generals alone and killed the latter, yet he did not suffer much injuries. The 6 demon generals all felt a chill rising from the soles of their feet, straight to their heads. They stood in place, momentarily forgetting what they should do. Should they go up and fight, or continue to escape into the depths of the 18 levels of hell? And in another direction, Lu Jingyun, Lu Yuxiao, Long Ke, Long Su, and the rest were all incomparably shocked, feeling overwhelmed by Du Xiaofu's strength. Among the crowd, only Lu Xiaoyou's gaze was indifferent, with a trace of a smile on his lips. Du Xiaofu being able to grow to such an extent was also within his expectations. Desolate Demon General, Blood God Demon General, and Yu Duo Demon General are all dead. There are still 6 left. Du Xiaofu stood in the air, his gaze extremely cold. His gaze shifted, looking at the 6 demon generals who stood in the air in a daze, a strange smile appearing on his face. Being stared at by such a gaze, Ming Luo demon general and the rest could not help but shiver, as if they were being stared at by some ancient giant, feeling a terrifying aura of danger. All of them are actually scared silly, Du Xiaofu sneered, somewhat surprised that these demon generals who roamed the ancient times would actually be stunned in place because of him. This could not help but make one feel that it was laughable. However, it made sense when one thought about it. During the ancient times, the 9 demon generals roamed freely throughout the world, and countless living beings prostrated themselves before them. When had they ever tasted such despair? After seeing 3 of their compatriots killed one after another, it made sense that the remaining 6 would show expressions of fear. However, Du Xiaofu would not show any mercy at this time. He spun the purple-gold heavenly tower in his hand, and the sword light scattered out like a silver radiance. Killing intent filled the 9 heavens. Next, it's your turn. You 9 demon generals, go on your way together. A long howl was released from his mouth. It pierced through the clouds and rumbled like thunder. Immediately after, the purple-robed figure rushed out again, carrying the 9 purple lightning profound cauldrons and charging towards Ming Luo demon general and the others. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Above the purple-gold heavenly palace, a bright light surged, emitting a brazen aura. Du Xiaofu's own Tao was circulating. A special aura was added to his body, causing him to look like a transcendent being, giving others a sense of grandeur for no reason. Rumble. At the same time, the 9 purple lightning profound cauldrons seemed to be connected to Du Xiaofu's bloodline. Under the guidance of an invisible aura, they moved together, crushing the void like 9 huge mountains across the sky. A heavy aura was released, as if it had the power to suppress everything in the world. In such a terrifying movement, the 6 demon generals were suddenly alerted. Their beards and hair stood on end, and they were extremely shocked. At this time, when they looked at Du Xiaofu again, they did not dare to have the slightest contempt. Faintly, the 6 demon generals felt that even if the rest of them swarmed forward, they would definitely not be able to take down the purple-robed youth in a short time. Du Xiaofu was not a fool. He would definitely not stand there and let them kill him. Moreover, there was still Lu Xiaoyu in the distance. Run! In an instant, the 6 of them only had this thought. Killing Du Xiaofu had become an impossible task. If they ran for their lives, they might still have a chance of survival. As long as they could endure until they entered the 18th layer of hell and drew the demon ancestors' attention, they would still have a chance to live. Lu Xiaoyu, you must not interfere. The 6 demon generals thought to themselves anxiously. Their bodies moved as fast as they could and shuttled through the void like 6 bolts of lightning, disappearing in the blink of an eye. Carrying with them boundless fear, they began to flee. At the same time, they prayed that Lu Xiaoyu would not interfere. Otherwise, they would all die. Under Du Xiaofu's pursuit, they naturally had a better chance of escaping with their lives. Don't even think about escaping. Du Xiaofu charged forward with all his might. Wrapped in an incomparably terrifying aura, he caused the world to tremble. Naturally, he could see that the 6 demon generals were unwilling to give up. However, because they were afraid of Lu Xiaoyu, they didn't dare to take any chances. To Du Xiaofu, there was no way he would let any of the demon generals escape. His plan was very simple. Before he finally faced Jiangchen, he would kill all 9 demon generals and cut off the demon ancestors' left and right arms. In the end, Dongli Qihuang and Chen Yin, the 2 demon servants, had to be completely suppressed. Oh right, there was also the blood ancestor, who had attacked him many times. He was also on Du Xiaofu's list of must-kill targets. All of this had to be dealt with before the battle with the demon ancestor. With this thought in mind, Du Xiaofu's aura soared. His murderous intent was awe-inspiring as he rapidly pursued. The 6 demon generals didn't dare to look back. Like 6 stray dogs, they fled for their lives. At this moment, everyone's hearts were filled with anxiety. Du Xiaofu was like a reaper chasing after their lives. The distance between them grew closer and closer. If they didn't escape fast enough, their lives could be reaped at any time. Let's go too. Behind them, Lu Xiaoyu spoke softly to Lu Jingyun and the others. Then, hundreds of people moved together and began to advance deeper into the 18 layers of hell. After passing through this layer of hell, they would arrive at the 16th layer of hell. They weren't far from the final destination. When everyone entered the 16th layer of hell, Du Xiaofu finally caught up to the Crimson Demon General's footsteps. A new round of killing began, and in the past few days, another huge commotion had spread to everyone's senses. Everyone knew that the dragon god, Dibatian, Donghuang Taixian, Yanghua, and Lu Xintong were breaking the seals of the 18 layers of hell and rescuing the ancient powerhouses. As a result, 7 layers of seals had been broken. Those 2 ancestors have already passed away. After sensing the situation, Lu Xiaoyu let out a soft sigh. Beside him, Lu Jingyun, Long Ke, and the others all looked incomparably lonely and sorrowful. The 6th and 7th layers of hell had been broken, and the powerhouses inside had all fallen and turned into dust, never to wake up again. For the sake of the ancient beings of Panga's world, those ancestors had sacrificed their lives and suppressed the demon ancestors' primordial spirit and countless demons in the 18 layers of hell, fighting for the peace of the 33 heavens for eternity. Their contributions were outstanding and had lasted for thousands of generations. However, in this era, the beings of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds finally had the ability to redeem them. However, many of those ancestors would never be able to see the great world that they had protected. When they thought of this, Lu Xiaoyu, Lu Jingyun, Long Ke, and the others couldn't help but feel bitter and sorrowful. If we can successfully kill the demon ancestor, those ancestors will be able to rest in peace. Their sacrifice will naturally be worth it. An expert of the 33 heavens said in a deep voice. The commotion from the 7th layer of hell quickly quieted down. It could be imagined that the dragon god, Dibatian, and the others should be starting to head to the 8th layer of hell to save all the ancient powerhouses. Everyone didn't think too much about it and continued to follow closely behind Du Xiaofu and the 6 great demon generals, watching the chase over there. In front, the purple-robed youth was incomparably brave. After chasing the crimson-flamed devil general, he brazenly dragged it into the range of his attacks. Du Xiaofu displayed an overbearing and peerless strength, constantly attacking. The Crimson Flame Demon General could only parry the attacks and was completely suppressed by Du Xiaofu's tyrannical swordlight and the 9 purple lightning profound cauldrons. The Crimson Flame Demon General was completely suppressed by Du Xiaofu. At the same time, Ming Luo Demon General and the others couldn't be bothered to rescue them and were all running for their lives. Du Xiaofu was too ferocious, causing them to feel terrified. If the 2 of them attacked together, they still couldn't stop him. If many of them attacked together, Lu Xiaoyu would inevitably interfere. Instead of falling into a meaningless battle, it was better to be straightforward and continue to go deeper into the 18 layers of hell to seek the protection of the demon ancestor. Huff, huff, huff. Pieces of land passed under everyone's feet. As time passed quickly, Du Xiaofu finally completely captured the Crimson Flame Devil General. He raised the broadsword and brazenly slashed down, directly cutting the Crimson Flame Devil General in half. As the devil blood spilled, a fiery red primordial spirit tried to escape, but when Du Xiaofu raised the broadsword again, it turned into a rain of light and exploded. The Crimson Flame Devil General was dead. Next is the 5th. After killing the Crimson Flame Devil General, Du Xiaofu's eyes turned again and stared at Ming Luo Demon General, who was the last of the remaining great demon generals. At this time, the remaining 5 demon generals had fled quite a distance away. The 5 of them used all their strength to escape, so there was a gap between them. They didn't dare to stop for even a moment. At this time, how could they care about cooperating with each other? As long as they could escape with their lives, it would be their greatest fortune. It was also because of this that Ming Luo Demon General was slower than the fierce Locust Demon General, Luan Su Demon General, Evading Shadow Demon General, and Hun Mian Demon General, so he was targeted by Du Xiaofu. You can escape now, but you can't escape forever. Your fate is sealed, and no one can save you. Du Xiaofu snorted coldly, and at the same time, he shouted. Sword breaks 10,000 miles. When the shout sounded out, a sword light that pierced through the heavens and the earth rose into the sky and brazenly struck down. Such a sword light directly split the heavens and the earth, destroying everything in the world, and enveloped Ming Luo Demon General's body. In an instant, Ming Luo Demon General only felt that his body was being torn apart by a great force, as if it was going to break into thousands of pieces and explode. This feeling was too terrifying, and it made one's heart turn cold. He desperately wanted to escape, but Du Xiaofu's power of the Great Tao tightly bound him, making it difficult for him to move, as if he had fallen into a swamp. Swoosh! When the sword light slashed from behind him, Ming Luo Demon General finally broke free from the terrifying suppression and hurriedly dodged. However, half of his body was still slashed by the sword light, and blood spurted out. In an instant, Ming Luo Demon General's entire body was drenched in sweat, as if he had been drenched in rain. Fortunately, he had used up all his strength to dodge the attack, allowing him to temporarily keep his life. However, in the next moment, before Ming Luo Demon General could breathe a sigh of relief, he heard a loud rumbling sound coming from the sky. Under the prying of the power of the primordial spirit, Ming Luo Demon General was almost scared out of his wits, and he was extremely shocked. Rumble! The 9 divine thunder cauldrons crushed the void and brazenly smashed down. In just a moment, they had caught up to him and directly smashed down on his head. Rumble! After the first divine thunder cauldron fell, Ming Luo Demon General's torso directly exploded into a cloud of blood, leaving only his head, legs, and an arm. Rumble! At this time, the second purple thunder cauldron arrived and directly smashed the back of his head. In a hurry, Ming Luo Demon General did not need to think too much. Immediately, his primordial spirit left his body and desperately escaped. Behind him, his physical body had already turned into nothingness under the crushing of the third divine thunder cauldron and no longer existed. I've already said that you can't escape. Du Xiaofu's voice came, accompanied by an earth-shattering roar. With the pressure of the other divine thunder cauldrons, Ming Luo Demon General's primordial spirit only felt a terrifying wave of dizziness, as if he was about to faint. Then, after a terrifying burst of force, his last trace of consciousness was also destroyed. The fifth Demon General was killed just like that. Phew! After killing Ming Luo Demon General, Du Xiaofu also let out a sigh of relief. Along the way, he had been attacking with all his might and had consumed a lot of energy. However, Du Xiaofu did not have any intention of stopping. After slightly relaxing, he continued to move. Boundless space was swept past by him as he quickly chased after the remaining few people. Junior Master Du is indeed terrifying. All these years, those who went against him, I'm afraid none of them had a good ending. Behind him, Long Su smacked his lips and said in a daze. He and Long Ke were both born in the 3,000 boundless worlds and were the sons of the dragon god. Since young, they had received great protection and grew up under the shadow of their elders. Even though in their early years, the two of them went out alone to train, but after all, their foundation was deep and everything they experienced was far from Du Xiaofu's. In comparison, the two of them were indeed flowers in a greenhouse. The reason why Du Xiaofu could grow so quickly was not unrelated to everything he had experienced. As for his enemies, under the aggressive methods of the purple-robed youth, naturally, they would not have a good ending. Powerhouses all grow up like this. There is still a big gap between us and Junior Master Du. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been trapped in the third level of meditative realm for so many years. Beside him, Lu Jingyun took over and said with a sigh. After Lu Jingyun finished speaking, he secretly glanced at his father. Relatively speaking, he had experienced more than the two brothers, Long Ke and Long Su. However, compared to Du Xiaofu, he was still lacking by quite a bit. Lu Jingyun's father, Lu Xiaoyu, was the same. Only by going through thousands of dangers could one break through thousands of disasters, and naturally, one could reach heights that ordinary people could not reach. Around them, many powerhouses nodded their heads, deeply agreeing with Lu Jingyun's point of view. The crowd followed Du Xiaofu and the remaining few devil generals and continued to go deeper into the 18 levels of hell. Under their gazes, Du Xiaofu chased behind the fierce locust devil general with an absolutely ferocious posture. When he neared the entrance of the 17th level of hell, the fierce locust devil general was also killed, dying an unnatural death. At this time, only 3 devil generals were left alive. We've entered the 17th level of hell. As they got closer to the 18th level of hell, Lu Xiaoyu's expression gradually became more solemn. The devil ancestor was in the 18th level of hell. What was about to happen next would be the most terrifying battle. Victory or defeat, success or failure, would be decided in this one move. Jingyun, you guys wait here for your Uncle Xiaolong and Aunt Xintong. Leave the rest to me and your martial uncle Du to settle. You guys can't help much in the battle with the devil ancestor. Lu Xiaoyu turned his head and looked at Lu Jingyun. The devil ancestor was too powerful. Although he had not recovered to his peak state and had been interfered by him once, there was no doubt about it. Needless to say, it was definitely a terrifying being. To these hundreds of meditative realm powerhouses, it was an invincible existence. If Lu Jingyun and the rest entered the 18th level of hell with them, even the aftermath of the battle would easily reap their lives. All right, Father, be careful. We'll wait here for your and Uncle Du's triumphant return. Lu Jingyun's expression was incomparably solemn. He nodded seriously and looked at his father as he spoke. The next battle was the most important. He could not help much. He could only pray sincerely for his father and Uncle Du to successfully kill the devil ancestor. Father, be careful. Xiaoyu, be careful. Uncle Lu, be careful. Overlord of the 3,000 cosmos, be careful. Lu Yuxiao, Lu Ying, Lu Cheng, Long Ke, Long Su, and the other powerhouses of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 cosmos all said to Lu Xiaoyu. In response, Lu Xiaoyu did not say much. He only nodded his head. He looked ahead. Du Xiaofu's figure had already disappeared at the entrance of the 17th level of hell. The remaining devil generals had already gone in. Lu Xiaoyu did not delay any longer. In a flash, his figure faded away and he left the place. After watching Lu Xiaoyu leave, Lu Jingyun and the rest stood still. Everyone's heart was in their throats at this moment. Finally, after many terrifying battles, the beings of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 cosmos had given their all against the devil race. After a few twists and turns, the final battle was about to come. Chapter 29:63. Lu Xiaoyu, Du Xiaofu, the Dragon God, Dibatian, Donghuang Taixian, Yanghua, and Lu Xintong would be the ones to complete the final battle. As the one who started the ancient war, the devil ancestor was extremely terrifying. He was above all living beings. However, this time, the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds were not too worried because they had Lu Xiaoyu and Du Xiaofu. After many years of planning by the lords of the 3,000 boundless worlds, the devil race was almost annihilated. The only one they had to face was the devil ancestor. At this moment, all the experts were hoping that Lu Xiaoyu would be able to easily suppress the devil ancestor. Then, Du Xiaofu would attack and kill him. In this way, the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds would truly welcome peace and prosperity. Lu Jingyun and the others watched as Lu Xiaoyu left. Du Xiaofu and the rest of the devil generals had also disappeared. The entire 16th layer of hell was empty. Those weak devil race members had already hidden themselves in some unknown place. At this moment, another loud noise was heard by everyone. It was the dragon god and the others' movements. They had caused quite a commotion. On the other side, in the 17th layer of hell, Du Xiaofu was still carrying out a terrifying pursuit. The remaining 3 devil generals were terrified. The purple-robed youth came with the intent to kill. He swore to cut down all the devil generals with his sword. I don't care so much. Let's fight together. Even if Lu Xiaoyu kills me, I don't want to die in such a humiliating way. Sensing that Du Xiaofu was hot on his heels, Lu and Su was on the verge of breaking down. They had been chased by the purple-robed youth. 6 of the original 9 devil generals had already died in his hands. At this moment, only he, the evading Shadow Devil General, and the shrouded Soul Devil General were still alive. However, this process was too torturous. Seeing his companions die one after another, Devil General Luin Su had an indescribable grievance in his heart. Back in the ancient era, the 9 great devil generals ruled the Devil World and Pangu World. Countless creatures were frightened by them. Even when Pangu and Exalted Celestial were still alive, they wouldn't underestimate them. Yet now, a kid at the half-step Dao Vessel realm had actually caused them to suffer such enormous losses. It had to be said that this was indeed enough to make one feel aggrieved. It was too cowardly. When have we, the 9 great demon generals, ever suffered such humiliation? Hearing Luin Su's voice, the fleeing shadow demon general's words were also extremely deep. 2 sharp scarlet lights shot out from his eyes, hidden under the hood. To them, Du Xiaofu's existence was the greatest humiliation they had ever suffered in their lives. At this moment, the demon generals only hated the fact that their cultivation levels were not high enough. Otherwise, they would definitely tear that brat into pieces and make him die without a burial ground, never to be reincarnated. I can't take it anymore. Let's fight. Even if we die, we have to skin that brat alive. Endless viciousness rose in Soul Puppet's heart as he gritted his teeth and said hatefully. A resolute will rose in his heart, and he decided to go all out and fight. Just as Luin Su had said, regardless of whether Lu Xiaoyu would allow the 3 great demon generals to attack at the same time, the 3 of them couldn't take it anymore. Even if they were stopped, the 3 great demon generals didn't want to continue fleeing. Being chased around like dogs, they wouldn't be able to escape death in the end. After exchanging glances with each other, the Luin Su Demon General, the fleeing Shadow Demon General, and the Hun Yin Demon General steeled their hearts. They instantly stopped moving and gathered together, quietly waiting for Du Xiaofu's arrival. The 3 of you are joining forces? Do you think this will be enough to stop me? Du Xiaofu rushed over with a ferocious aura. Looking at the 3 great demon generals' actions, he couldn't help but sneer. The 9 purple lightning cauldrons were drawn by his aura and scattered in all directions, moving forward together with him. Since you don't want to escape, I won't be courteous. I'll gladly take your lives. Du Xiaofu snorted as he slashed with the broadsword in his hand. The sword radiance shook the world and attacked the heavens and the earth. It didn't take long for him to charge into the encirclement of the 3 demon generals and launch a ferocious attack. The terrifying battle started again. Waves of fierce energy swept across the heavens and the earth, crushing everything. The 3 great demon generals heaved a sigh of relief when Lu Xiaoyu, who was far behind Du Xiaofu, didn't stop them from joining forces this time. Instead, he watched quietly. This outcome was exactly what the 3 of them wanted. They saw a ray of hope. Delay Du Xiaofu, but don't expect to kill him. The 3 of us will fight as we move. As long as we can hold on until we reach the 18th level of hell, we will act according to the circumstances. Soul Puppet thought quickly. Seeing that Lu Xiaoyu wasn't attacking, he had a new idea. The other 2 demon generals also agreed with this plan. Then, the 3 of them surrounded Du Xiaofu and fought. However, they didn't use their full strength. They only wanted to protect themselves and fight in a defensive position. They retreated as they fought, dragging Du Xiaofu with them toward the 18th level of hell. Their thoughts couldn't be hidden from Du Xiaofu, nor could they be hidden from Lu Xiaoyu, who was watching the battle from afar. However, Lu Xiaoyu still didn't interfere. He watched everything calmly as if he were an outsider. Even if the 3 of you join forces, you still can't escape death. Du Xiaofu, on the other hand, hardened his heart. After killing the 6 demon generals, he had a thorough understanding of their specific strength. Now that he was fighting 1 against 3, it would be easy for him to not lose. However, this wasn't the result Du Xiaofu wanted. His true goal was to completely eliminate the 9 demon generals before he fought Jiangchen. With this mentality, even if the 3 demon generals deliberately avoided him, Du Xiaofu still attacked with all his might. Powerful sword rays were slashed out, and the Origin Source Sky Murdering Sword was also used from time to time. At the same time, the 9 purple lightning profound cauldrons rampaged through the void. Monstrous power burst forth, as if they were going to smash through the 17th level of hell. Crackle, accompanied by a series of violent roars of energy, the fierce battle continued. When the three demon generals joined forces, it was truly terrifying. Even the current Du Xiaofu would not have an easy time dealing with them. Occasionally, he would suffer a sudden attack, and the three demon generals would succeed in their surprise attacks. However, these didn't cause Du Xiaofu any serious injuries. His aura was still like a rainbow as he rampaged through. On the other hand, the three demon generals didn't have any intention of fighting to the death. Under Du Xiaofu's attacks, they suffered repeated attacks. This was a long battle, from the entrance of the 17th level of hell all the way to the depths of the 18th level of hell. During this time, Lu Xiaoyu followed closely behind, quietly watching. Most of his thoughts were no longer on the battle. Instead, he paid close attention to the movements in the 18th level of hell, spying on the demon ancestor's situation. "Kill!" Du Xiaofu roared, raising his sword and slashing with all his might. The 9 cauldrons also attacked fiercely. After a long battle, crisscrossing wounds had appeared on his body. Blood flowed, soaking his purple robes. However, Du Xiaofu seemed to be unaware of all this. He continued to drag the 3 demon generals into a bloody battle. The other party wanted to avoid the battle, but Du Xiaofu wouldn't let them do as they wished. Under his powerful attacks, Demon General Luan Su, Demon General Evading Shadow, and Demon General Hun Su were also covered in demon blood. They looked extremely miserable. The more they fought, the more fear they felt. Du Xiaofu didn't intend to let the 3 of them go. He was actually risking his life to fight. In this way, they really didn't know if the 3 demon generals could hold on until they saw the demon ancestor in the 18th level of hell. As expected of an ancient demon general, he can still hold on. In the endless battle, Du Xiaofu was injured, and his aura had also withered. The 3 demon generals were strong enough. Even if he had used all his strength, it would be troublesome to get rid of them in a short period of time when they joined forces and wanted to leave. However, Du Xiaofu wasn't in a hurry. He was very patient. Again and again, he attacked with terrifying attacks and continued to kill. The 4 of them were constantly consuming a terrifying amount of energy. Their strength was much weaker than before. Fortunately, Du Xiaofu had the upper hand. He had the 9 cauldrons in his hand. In addition to his own strength, it was really a headache for the 3 demon generals. Demon Ancestor, I'm here again. While paying attention to the fierce battle between Du Xiaofu and the others, Lu Xiaofu's lips moved slightly and said softly. His gaze looked forward as if it had penetrated the barrier of space and entered the depths of the 18th level of hell. He saw the demon ancestor and looked at him. It was unknown when Lu Xiaoyu's expression had become incomparably solemn and serious. There was no trace of a smile on his face. The aura on his body was gradually rising. This rise wasn't obvious, but it was terrifying enough. His powerful cultivation was being mobilized by him. All his strength was like a strong arrow on a bow, stretched taut. Even though he had arranged everything, he was about to enter the 18th level of hell. Lu Xiaofu couldn't be too calm. The final battle was about to arrive. Everything depended on the development of the situation. Only when everything went smoothly could the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds be truly preserved. If the demon ancestor was too powerful and they were unlucky enough to fall, the creatures of the 2 worlds would definitely not be able to escape the fate of being slaughtered. In the end, the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds would become the demon domain. The demon ancestor was the true foundation of the demon race. With him, the demon race would naturally prosper. Without him, where would the demon race come from? Xiaolong, Master, Big Brother, Xintong. Lu Xiaofu suddenly put away his thoughts and called out to Xiaolong and the others. He said, "Put aside the matters at hand for now. Let's meet in the 17th level of hell. I'll take Xuelu with me first. When the time is right, I'll inform you to come and fight." As he spoke, Lu Xiaofu's almost inaudible voice was transmitted to the 10th level of hell. Xiaolong, Dibatian, Donghuang Taixian, Yanghua, and Lu Xintong were there. The seals of the first 9 levels of hell had all been broken by them. However, The depressing thing was that there were only 3 ancient powerhouses who had survived. This was indeed a painful truth. It was like a heavy mountain pressing down on their hearts. Chila, after Lu Xiaofu finished speaking, he gently opened his palm. Then, a huge black hole appeared in the void in front of him. It formed a terrifying chaotic vortex that seemed to be able to devour everything in the world. It was extremely terrifying. If other cultivators were at the meditative realm or below, their primordial spirit and physical body would be torn apart just by looking at such a black hole. They would die without a trace. Such power was too terrifying. However, this was only a part of Lu Xiaofu's power. It was hard to imagine what a terrifying scene it would be if he used his full strength. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The moment the black hole appeared, a burst of cheerful cries filled the air and suddenly appeared in this space. In the black hole, blood-red and golden radiance shone brightly. A long saber rushed out and fell into Lu Xiaofu's palm. This was his Shuelu. Under his gentle summons, it immediately came to the scene. Shuelu, Lu Xiaofu held the long saber in one hand and gently stroked the blade with the other. It was as if he was looking at his closest brother. His eyes were filled with endless closeness. "How many years has it been since we had a real battle?" Lu Xiaofu murmured and said slowly. He looked at the long saber in his hand. It was as if he was dreaming of those glorious days from countless years ago. Those days were filled with passion. During those years, it was the saber in his hand that accompanied him. Step by step, he went against the heavens and walked towards the peak. He himself could not say for sure how many enemies died under the Shuelu saber and became ghosts. However, after he truly reached the peak, there were not many times when he truly fought with his full strength. He missed that feeling. The only time he could be counted as one was many years ago when he fought against the demon god in the Shenwu world. "Shuelu, Shuelu, I know you have been quiet for a long time. Next, accompany me in a good fight." Lu Xiaoyu spoke softly, but at the end of his words, his entire aura suddenly changed. From the original ordinary and mediocre aura, it became incomparably fierce and decisive. It was as if he was an unsheathed long saber with matchless sharpness. Finally, he glanced at the direction of Du Xiaofu and the 3 demon generals. At this time, the young man in the purple robe and the 3 of them had disappeared from the entrance of the 18th layer of hell. Lu Xiaofu did not delay any longer. His eyes suddenly focused, like 2 sharp swords piercing through the heavens and earth. Voila! Everywhere he looked, a chaotic light rose up. It was as if the clouds were coming out of the mountains. The scene was blurry. Boom, 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 boom. A terrifying tremor shook the entire 17th layer of hell. It was as if the end of the world was coming. The mountains were collapsing, the earth was exploding, the void was melting, the world was shaking. Heaven and earth seemed to have turned upside down in an instant. Unimaginable destruction occurred. Everything that could be seen was exploding violently, and those invisible forces could not escape such a fate. The power of the great Tao of the 17th layer of hell was destroyed. Great Tao patterns burst out, and the laws were completely chaotic. It was like a ball of tangled hemp, and then it was crushed by the vigorous force. In just a few breaths of time, the heavens and earth were turned into nothingness. The seal of the 18th layer of hell was broken and directly pierced through. The 17th and 18th layers of space were suddenly connected as one. "Demon ancestor, come out and fight." Lu Xiaofu's figure descended. His green robe fluttered, and his hair danced wildly without any wind. With a long shout, the heavens and earth resonated. The 2 connected spaces were about to collapse. An unconcealable majestic aura appeared on his body. There was an extraordinary power of the great Tao circulating around him, causing him to show a great difference from before. At this moment, Lu Xiaofu looked like a true god. The laws of heaven and earth and the truths of the great Tao were all spread out with him as the center. Just by standing there, he directly changed everything around him. Clang, clang, clang. In Lu Xiaofu's hand, bloodshed emitted a trembling sound, as if the great Tao was shaking. It possessed an incomparably terrifying strength. In the distance, Du Xiaofu and the three demon generals were shocked by this scene. They almost forgot to fight. The eyes of the four were all focused on Lu Xiaofu. They were shocked by the strength he had revealed. Between the 17th and 18th layers of hell was the seal laid down by the great god Pango. For it to be so easily broken, this was too shocking. And when these two spaces were connected, they were the size of two worlds in the 33 heavens. Such a huge space actually emitted a sound of destruction beneath his feet. Lu Xiaofu's cultivation was actually terrifying. Is the final battle about to begin? After a moment, Du Xiaofu finally suppressed the emotions in his heart and muttered to himself. Seeing his senior brother's posture, how could he not imagine what would happen next? The final battle had arrived. Senior brother Lu Xiaofu had declared war on the demon ancestor. It's time to get rid of you people. Du Xiaofu retracted his gaze and exhaled deeply. He no longer thought about it. His gaze was sharp, like a knife, as he stared at the three demon generals. The final battle had arrived. He couldn't drag them down. Kill. After Du Xiaofu made some slight adjustments, he brazenly charged out again, directly attacking the three great demon generals. As soon as he entered this space, Du Xiaofu had already sensed the demon ancestor's presence. His aura was too deep and vast, terrifying. It was hard to imagine how terrifying Jiangxin would be if he fully recovered his peak strength. Because of this, Du Xiaofu realized the urgency of the situation. He no longer held back and pursued the three demon generals fiercely. Hiss hiss. Du Xiaofu's broadsword flashed with swordlight. His robes fluttered in the wind as he transformed into a peerless madman. Rumble. Under his control, the 9 lightning cauldrons danced wildly, their killing intent exploding. Chapter 29:64. Du Xiaofu's killing intent soared to the heavens. He continued to drag the remaining 3 demon generals into the fray. He had no intention of letting them go. The seal between the 17th and 18th layers of hell had been completely broken. Senior brother Lu Xiaoyu had arrived, and Jiangxin was most likely about to appear as well. Your Excellency, save me. Your Excellency, hurry up and kill Du Xiaofu. In the face of Du Xiaofu's relentless pursuit, the 3 demon generals let out mournful howls. The purple-robed youth seemed to have gone mad. He circled around them, wildly attacking them, completely ignoring his injuries. This situation caused the 3 demon generals to be utterly shocked. However, now that they'd entered the 18th layer of hell, their hopes had only grown. The demon ancestor was in this space. He could sense all of this. If he could deal with Du Xiaofu, then the 3 of them would be able to survive. With that thought in mind, demon generals Lu and Su, evading shadow, and enshrouded soul all cried out, hoping to awaken the slumbering demon ancestor. Your Lord Demon Ancestor can't even fend for himself. Do you expect him to come save you? Du Xiaofu snorted, laughing coldly. His injuries weren't light, and he'd exhausted a great deal of his strength. Along the way, Du Xiaofu had killed 6 demon generals and forced them into a dead end under the joint efforts of 3 demon generals. Du Xiaofu felt a little weak. However, he didn't care. All he wanted to do was kill the last 3. Amidst the fierce battle, Du Xiaofu glanced into the distance. He could sense a terrifying aura swirling around him. This was the power that naturally flowed from Jiangxin's body. It was incomparably terrifying. Scarlet and pitch-black auras spread out, carrying with them a murderous, ruthless, savage, and bloodthirsty auras. As these auras surged, a figure blocked them. They didn't form a storm that would affect Du Xiaofu and the others. This figure wielded a long sword. It was Lu Xiaoyu. Lu Xiaoyu, do you really think I can't kill you? A hoarse howl came from an extremely deep place. It was ferocious and brutal, and it made one's hair stand on end. The aura emanating from Lu Xiaoyu's body was vast and mighty, causing the heaven and earth to tremble violently. It infuriated the fiend ancestor. You talk too much. Come out and fight. If you want to continue hiding like a turtle, then I have no choice but to invite you out. Lu Xiaoyu spoke softly, but his voice was like thunder, breaking through the 9 heavens. He raised the long saber in his hand, and suddenly, a fierce saber light shot out. It cut open the void and directly shot out into the depths. Following the demon ancestor's roar, the demonic aura in the space surged like a thick black fog. Ah! The demon ancestor's howl tore through the sky and cracked the earth, causing the sky and earth to crumble and turn into nothingness. Even the primal chaos could no longer exist. Lu Xiaoyu, when this ancestor fully recovers, I'll kill you like a dog. The fiend ancestor shouted again. His hoarse voice sounded like metal rubbing against each other. It was extremely terrifying. He hid like a turtle and tried his best to recover quickly. He didn't want to fight Lu Xiaoyu. That bastard had planned for many years and arranged many things. How could the fiend ancestor easily fall into his trap and put himself in a state of no return? As long as he recovered his strength, he would be able to see Lu Xiaoyu as an ant and directly crush him. Fully recovered? I don't know if you are dumb or if you think I am dumb. Even at this time, you can still speak such naive words. Lu Xiaoyu coldly snickered. He pointed his long saber at the sky, and another wave of saber light slashed out, splitting open the sky and splitting the earth. The entire space formed by the 17th and 18th levels of hell was sliced in half by this slash. The power was overwhelming, and it was unstoppable. Under such an attack, the fiend ancestor continued to howl and almost went insane. But he still didn't show himself. He continued to hide and didn't dare to show himself. Since you won't come out, then I will invite you out. Seeing this, Lu Xiaoyu's expression was cold and he spoke out. His expression was solemn, and there seemed to be a hint of fear in it. He didn't know much about Jiangxin's situation. Earlier, when he'd interfered with the fiend ancestor, Lu Xiaoyu had already sensed that something was off. Now, the feeling was even stronger. But now, the time for the ultimate battle had come. Jiangxin, if you don't come out now, I'll take the lives of your capable subordinates. Just as Lu Xiaoyu was about to charge into the depths of the demonic qi, Du Xiaofu roared, his voice loud and clear. As he fought with the three demon generals, he saw his senior apprentice brother's grave expression. He couldn't help but recall what he'd said earlier. Jiangxin's strength has recovered far faster than his senior apprentice brother expected. Although he'd been suppressed again, the grave feeling he gave off was even more profound. Du Xiaofu was deeply afraid that something unexpected would happen. If he could use the three demon generals' lives to provoke the fiend ancestor to appear, then his senior apprentice brother would have to face him head-on. That would be the best outcome. If Lu Xiaoyu rashly entered, who knew what unimaginable things would happen? Du Xiaofu, I only regret that I didn't awaken long ago. If I had, you wouldn't have been able to live until today. When he heard Du Xiaofu's words, Jiangxin roared again, his voice filled with hatred. Back in the divine martial world, he'd always been slightly stronger than Du Xiaofu. If he'd wanted to kill him, it wouldn't have been impossible. However, back then, he was Jiangxin. Although he wasn't friends with Du Xiaofu in name, they were friends in reality. The two of them had helped each other many times, and their friendship ran deep. In addition, back then, Jiangxin was merely the fiend ancestor's physical body. He hadn't awakened his memories, nor had he merged with the fiend ancestor's primordial spirit. Don't you think it's too late to say all this now? Du Xiaofu laughed coldly. His body stepped into the void, and his feet seemed to tread on the veins of the Tao. He was incomparably fierce. He waved his arm, and the 9 cauldrons of divine thunder fiercely moved. Luan Su, who'd been hiding in the void, was smashed out of his hiding place. Demonic blood gushed out of his mouth. Over the years, Du Xiaofu had thought about this many times. He discovered an unimaginable truth. When Jiangxin had first awakened his memories, he'd wanted him dead. Back then, he'd fought against the demon god alone. In the end, he'd risked his life and truly died. In the final moments, Jiangxin had appeared, killed the fiend ancestor, and devoured his primordial spirit. Otherwise, given the friendship between Du Xiaofu and him, how could he not have helped him sooner? If that had been the case, Du Xiaofu wouldn't have had to endure such a tribulation. If it weren't for the help of the Du clan's ancestors and his senior apprentice brother Lu Xiaoyu, he probably would have died. never to come back to life. Thousands of years had passed, and Du Xiaofu had gradually come to understand more and more of the truth. Today, for the sake of his family, his beloved, his friends, his countless citizens, for the sake of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 sectors, and for the sake of all the living beings he cared about, Jiang Qian had become a target that he had to kill. Only with the fiend ancestor's death could the world truly be at peace. So, fundamentally speaking, the current Jiangqian was no longer the same Jiangqian he'd been before. There was no longer any friendship between Du Xiaofu and him. The only thing that existed between them was endless hatred. They were enemies of life and death. Either you die, or I perish. Du Xiaofu, no matter how many of my people you kill, I'll make sure the people of exalted heaven pay for it with their lives. Jiangqian howled. His hoarse voice was like a sharp blade, capable of piercing through everything. Du Xiaofu immediately felt a wave of dizziness when he heard such a terrifying sound. Fortunately, Lu Xiaoyu acted in time and blocked everything. Du Xiaofu's dizziness only lasted for a moment before disappearing. You're the one who should be having a headache right now. How dare you threaten me? Do you really think I'm afraid of you? Du Xiaofu harumphed coldly. His eyes darted to the evading shadow demon general, one of the 3 demon generals. The camaraderie between him and Jiangqian had vanished long ago, when he'd first entered the first layer of hell. If senior brother Lu Xiaoyu hadn't arrived in time, he feared he really would have died at Jiangqian's hands. Now, Du Xiaofu only saw his opponent as the demon ancestor. Naturally, he wouldn't slack off in the slightest. As soon as he finished speaking, he let out a cold harumph. The purple-robed figure suddenly flashed and disappeared from the sky. In the next instant, he appeared beside the evading shadow demon general. At that moment, the evading shadow demon general had just dodged an attack from a divine lightning cauldron. He let out a sigh of relief, but suddenly, a feeling of extreme danger rose in his heart. Then, Du Xiaofu appeared in front of him and slashed down with his broadsword. The evading shadow demon general's eyes widened as he watched the sword descend upon his head. Die! Roared Du Xiaofu. Sword light flashed, shocking the world. The evading shadow demon general's body was cleaved in half from top to bottom. Demon blood sprayed out like rain. After losing the protection of his physical body, the demon general's primordial spirit tried to flee, but Du Xiaofu stomped down on it. It was truly annihilated, turning into nothingness and ceasing to exist. However, in the process, the evading shadow demon general unleashed a terrifying attack. It pierced through Du Xiaofu's chest, leaving a hole in his front and back. Jiangqian, if you continue to hide like a turtle, I'll have no choice but to kill these demon generals one by one. Of course, even if you appear now, you won't be able to change the outcome, said Du Xiaofu coldly. He didn't care about his injuries at all. Thanks to his indestructible Xian body's automatic recovery, the wound on his chest slowly healed. Whoosh, his figure flashed. He stopped talking to the demon ancestor and went after the demon general Luan Su and the demon general Hun Yin. The 2 demon generals were so shocked that they were on the verge of collapsing. The purple-robed youth had pursued them with the intention of risking his life. Even with the 3 demon generals' abilities, they couldn't escape their fate. The evading shadow demon general's death was the best example. Lu Xiaoyu watched all of this. When he saw Du Xiaofu's actions, a smile involuntarily appeared on his face, which was filled with an endless solemnity. He held the bloody slaughter blade in his hand and stood motionless in the air. He was no longer in a hurry to challenge the demon ancestor. Instead, he waited quietly as if to see if the demon ancestor could endure. Du Xiaofu, don't be so arrogant. The day this ancestor recovers will be the day you die. Jiangqian yelled again, charging at Du Xiaofu. However, Lu Xiaoyu used some method to filter out the terrifying sound waves. His murderous intent was neutralized, leaving only his words to reach Du Xiaofu's ears. Jiangqian couldn't remain calm in the face of a demon general's tragic death. He was furious. I'm right here. If you have the ability, come and kill me, snorted Du Xiaofu coldly. His eyes narrowed and a piercingly cold light surged from them. After that, his figure suddenly attacked, and he charged towards the Hun demon general. "Brat, even if I die, I won't let you off so easily," roared the Hun Yin demon general. He no longer dodged. Since Du Xiaofu wanted to kill him, it would be difficult for him to escape this calamity. As he screamed, the Hun Yin demon general's demonic aura surged, transforming into a giant demon head outside his body. Its demonic horns were extended and its fangs were dense. Its bloody maw abruptly opened, and a foul stench surged out, swallowing Du Xiaofu whole. Faced with this, Du Xiaofu didn't slow down in the slightest. He raised his sword and charged straight into the giant maw. Not long after, his figure rushed out from the back of the devil's head. The aura on his body had withered a lot, and the immortal Shin body had been corroded a lot. It looked like it was festering, and it was extremely terrifying. However, Du Xiaofu didn't care about this. He held a figure in his hand, whose entire body was covered in black robes. His true appearance couldn't be seen clearly. Behind him, the demon head formed from demonic aura instantly disintegrated and dissipated like mist. Die! Du Xiaofu raised the broadsword in his hand and slashed down fiercely. Amidst the boundless sharpness, the saber beam cut wantonly, instantly destroying the Hun Yin demon general's body. Even the primordial spirit inside didn't have time to escape. It was destroyed along with him, his body and Tao vanishing. Ah! Sensing this scene, the fiend ancestor howled incessantly. He was on the brink of insanity. Du Xiaofu had already killed a second demon general in front of him. This made him infuriated. Of the 9 demon generals, only Demon General Lu Ensu was still alive. He was the only one left. This made the fiend ancestor furious. However, after a long roar, he still didn't move. To the fiend ancestor, there was nothing more important than recovering his strength. Once he reached his peak state, no one in this world could stop him. And if he fell for Du Xiaofu's provocation, he would truly fall into Lu Xiaoyou's trap. By then, it would be too late for regrets. Du Xiaofu, in the future, everything you've done will be returned to you 1,000,000 times over. Jiangxin yelled, spitting out a string of threats. At the same time, an endless amount of demon qi, accompanied by a blood-red brilliance, rushed out from the depths of the 18th layer of hell. It transformed into a peerless blood spear, intent on killing Du Xiaofu, but was blocked by Lu Xiaoyu. The fiend ancestor was helpless. For now, he couldn't attack. Countless demon generals had already died. In the future, these debts could only be repaid by the 33 heavens and the 3,000 realms. Is that so? Du Xiaofu laughed coldly. His body was stained with the blood of many demon generals, and it trickled down. His gaze shifted, fixed on the last demon, General Lu Ensu. Kill. When these words came out of Du Xiaofu's mouth, his figure had already disappeared from the void in a flash. Demon General Lu Ensu's proudest technique was his mastery of the laws of time. As an ancient powerhouse, he'd naturally walked his own path, and this path was based on the laws of time. Numerous miraculous fluctuations unfolded around his body. His figure was clearly there, yet it caused others to feel as if they were separated by 1,000 years. It seemed like he was at the upper reaches of space, yet also seemed like he was at the lower reaches of space. He was drifting and unfathomable. But in Du Xiaofu's eyes, this technique wasn't particularly difficult to capture. The strongest in the world are those with great strength. Although all laws are extraordinary and unfathomable, in the face of absolute strength, all laws of the great Tao are illusory. You think I can't do anything to you just because you're hiding in time? Watch me break through all laws. Du Xiaofu muttered to himself. Demon General Lu Ensu's injuries, compared to his own, were slightly lighter. Du Xiaofu's entire body trembled. The Tao mark that he walked out glowed, imprinted on his forehead. It was incomparably bright, tens of thousands of times brighter than the sun. He brazenly attacked, abandoning his sword. His palms and fingers formed into fists and fiercely punched down, directly towards the illusory demon General Lu Ensu. Buzz, buzz, buzz. There was no huge explosion. Instead, there was a terrifying buzzing sound. This buzzing sound was as if the great Tao was collapsing, as if the laws were rubbing against each other, as if the wheel of fate was spinning. It was incomparably terrifying. Following such a commotion, Du Xiaofu's fist directly broke through the formless ripples, and Demon General Luin Su's great Tao defenses collapsed layer by layer. Rumble. In the end, Du Xiaofu's fist actually landed on his chest, letting out a sound like a heavy hammer hitting a drum. This fist directly broke through the barriers of time and space, and blasted Demon General Luin Su out of the endless great Tao, returning to the present world. The 9 demon generals had been sealed for thousands of years, their strength greatly reduced. Compared to the present Du Xiaofu, the difference was too great. In the face of absolute power, no matter how profound your methods are, you cannot escape the fate of death. Du Xiaofu's voice was cold. He leapt forward and caught the flying demon General Luin Su in his hand. At some unknown time, the heavenly palace of purple gold appeared in his hand, releasing a boundless aura. Du Xiaofu held Demon General Luin Su in one hand and his sword in the other. His robes flapped loudly, and his black hair danced wildly. His feet stepped into the void, and he faced Jiangchen. The 9 demon generals will all die from now on, Du Xiaofu said coldly. Then, he raised his sword and slashed down on Demon General Luin Su's body. Demon General Luin Su's body was sliced open like a rag bag, then tossed into the void by Du Xiaofu like trash. His primordial spirit tried to escape, but was snatched away by the purple-robed youth. Under the force of his palm, his primordial spirit exploded. Du Xiaofu, I won't let you get away with this, Jiangchen roared, his hatred surging like a tidal wave. Chapter 2965. The hatred in the demon ancestor's voice was monstrous, but he still suppressed his anger and didn't walk out of his seclusion. The 9 demon generals were all dead. This was an unchangeable fact. Nothing was more important than him recovering his strength. Once he fully recovered and returned to his peak state, all the living beings in the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds would be buried with the demon ancestor. The entire world would become a demon domain. Junior brother, take a rest for now. Since the demon ancestor isn't willing to show himself, then let me invite him out. Lu Xiaoyu raised the long saber in his hand and looked at the deepest part of the 18th layer of hell again as he spoke to Du Xiaofu. No. However, Du Xiaofu shook his head and said, Rest for what? In addition to the 9 demon generals, there are 2 demon attendants and that old bird. I can sense that the 3 of them are hiding in this space. Since the demon ancestor isn't willing to show himself, then I'll make him completely alone. He exuded a terrifying and domineering aura, looking down on the world with awe-inspiring killing intent. Dongli Qihuang and Chen Yin, the 2 demon attendants, were outside the 18 layers of hell. When senior brother Lu Xiaoyu had just returned, he had already discovered that the situation was not good and had fled into the 18 layers of hell to avoid being attacked by the experts of the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds. In addition, the blood ancestor hid after the 3 demon generals appeared, and he didn't show up in the subsequent battle. Du Xiaofu killed the 9 demon generals, but the 3 of them still didn't show up. Du Xiaofu naturally wouldn't let go of Dongli Qihuang and Shan Yin. As the claws of the demon race, they were the closest people to the demon ancestor. Besides the demon ancestor and the 9 demon generals, they were the strongest existences in the demon race. The blood ancestor was originally a Xiantian life form in Pango world. He was incomparably powerful and born from the same egg as the primordial phoenix. However, his personality was at the other extreme, and he was known for his bloodlust. The old bird had attacked Du Xiaofu more than once to seize the chaos origin left behind by Exalted, Heavenly Master Exalted. Therefore, Du Xiaofu naturally wanted to kill him as soon as possible. Good. Lu Xiaofu after hearing Du Xiaofu's words. Lu Xiaofu, I'll leave the demon ancestor and the demon attendants and the blood ancestor. After he finished speaking, he suddenly raised his saber and walked through the void step by step, heading towards the depths of the 18th layer of hell. On Lu Xiaoyu's body, A large amount of multicolored light gushed out and enveloped his body, causing his entire person to be shrouded in a mysterious color. Senior brother. Senior. Be careful. Du, S's Ludoval Devil, S lose, SNNN, Du Xiaofu was a bit worried. So he'd tortured the 3 demon generals in an attempt to enrage the demon ancestor and force him to fight. But now, it seemed that Jiangxin's will was very firm. He only wanted to recover his strength. Although he was angry at the deaths of the 3 demon generals, he still endured it. Du Xiaofu prayed silently in his heart, hoping that no major changes would occur. He watched Lu Xiaofu advance. His senior brother's boundless aura made Du Xiaofu feel more at ease. He found it hard to imagine that there really was someone in the enchanting realm who was stronger than his senior brother. Senior brother's strength is truly terrifying. Lu Xiaofu could see some fine traces lingering around Lu Xiaofu's body. These traces were very difficult to discover. If not for Du Xiaofu cultivation, he definitely wouldn't have been able to sense them. He knew that this was Lu Xiaofu Dao, which had been engraved to perfection. It was extremely terrifying. His own Dao has reached perfection. It's completely natural, allowing him to be independent of the world. Even if time and space were to be destroyed and the world turned to dust, a Dao carrier in perfection would still be able to live on peacefully without being affected in the slightest. Du Xiaofu murmured softly. His senior brother Lu Xiaofu had entered the enchanting realm many years ago. Although he hadn't broken through to the final enchanting realm, he'd made steady progress and reached his current level. It was extremely terrifying. To a Dao carrier expert, their greatest characteristic was that they'd broken free from the shackles of heaven and earth. They'd broken free from the shackles of the great Dao and cast aside the rules and restrictions imposed on them by the world destroyers. If the 33 heavens, the 3,000 realms, and the demon world all collapsed and ceased to exist, then all living beings would be annihilated and disappear into nothingness. Because their lives were carried by the great Tao of heaven and earth and the myriad laws of the universe. Without the great Tao and rules, where would living beings come from? Where would all living beings come from? Where would all living beings come from? Where would the vast and colorful world come from? But to Lu Xiaofu's cultivation, it wouldn't be affected in the slightest by the collapse of the great Tao. He'd already transcended the heavens and the earth, transcended himself, and stood above all living beings. The day will come when I'll arrive at such a state as well. Du Xiaofu muttered lightly and muttered to himself. He had a goal in his heart, and his intentions were at the peak. Moreover, he even possessed unshakable faith and will. However, all of this was a matter for the future. The most important thing now was to face the devil ancestor and annihilate this ancient ferocious beast with his senior brother Lu Xiaofu. Dongli Qihuang, Qin Yin, are the 2 of you going to come out yourselves? Or should I go get the 2 of you? Du Xiaofu restrained his thoughts and asked loudly. Vast sound waves spread through the surroundings, resounded through the heavens and the earth, and penetrated through space. He stood on the spot and didn't make a move impatiently, and he utilized the energy of his soul core instead to carefully observe the minute movements in this level of space. He wanted to find Eastern Flame Crimson Phoenix and Chen Yin before crushing them. It was also at this moment that senior brother Lu Xiaofu's figure had already disappeared. He had entered the depths of the boundless demonic qi and disappeared. Qi, 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 boom, boom, boom. Following that, a wave of saber light pierced through the air and a huge tremor came from inside. Collision after collision occurred. Clearly, Lu Xiaofu had already started fighting with the devil ancestor. Lu Xiaofu, do you really think I don't dare to kill you first? The devil ancestor roared furiously, incomparably furious. Lu Xiaofu had caused a huge disturbance to him, interrupting his recovery process. Layers of terrifying auras rose into the sky, going against the heavens. Accompanied by the terrifying chaotic aura, this space seemed to be about to be destroyed. However, all of this was isolated in the depths of the 18 levels of hell and didn't really affect the entire space. Finally found it. Du Xiaofu observed for a long time. Finally, at a certain moment, the corners of his mouth curled up into a cold smile. He muttered to himself, "Let's see where you can hide this time." After a strict investigation, he'd finally found the tracks of Dongli Crimson Phoenix and Chan Yin, and they revealed themselves before his senses. Du Xiaofu didn't need to think. In an instant, he stretched out his hand and turned it into a huge dragon claw that tore through the void. Half of his arm disappeared into nothingness. Shortly after, when he retracted his arm, two figures appeared in his palm. Dongli Qihuang, Chun Yin. Du Xiaofu's eyes flickered with a cold light. He looked coldly at the two people in his hand and brought them to his side. He couldn't be more familiar with these two people. Besides the two demon attendants, who else could it be? Du Xiaofu, let us go. The demon ancestor, Lord won't let you go. Extreme fear had already appeared on Dongli Qihuang's handsome face. He was anxious and uneasy, as if he was scared out of his wits. He was grabbed in Du Xiaofu's hand like a little chick, and he didn't have the slightest strength to resist. Let you go? Du Xiaofu sneered and looked disdainfully at Dongli Qihuang. He mocked, your demon ancestor can't even take care of himself at this time. Could it be that the two of you still expect him to save you? His smile was eerie, like a terrifying evil lord, with a hint of brutality. Du Xiaofu, it's useless even if you kill us. So long as the demon ancestor is still alive, the devil race will trample through the 33 heavens and kill their way into the 3,000 worlds. Everyone will be unable to escape death. Chun Yan's expression wasn't any better than Dongli Qihuang, but he still tried his best to calm his tone and shouted loudly at Du Xiaofu. After he spoke these words, he roared fiercely once more, and his expression was extremely savage as he repeated, everyone will be unable to escape death. You won't be an exception. Chun Yan's face was already warped to the extreme. He hated Du Xiaofu to the bone, but his fate was in Du Xiaofu's hands now. Besides finding some strength in his words, he couldn't do anything. The two demon attendants were already clearly aware at the moment they were captured by Du Xiaofu that they were absolutely unable to escape death today. But before they died, they still couldn't help but speak some ruthless words. Not to mention whether your demon ancestor can survive in the end. Even if he can, it has nothing to do with the two of you. Du Xiaofu laughed sinisterly as he spoke. Du Xiaofu was determined to kill Dongli Qihuang and Chen Yin. He wouldn't show them the slightest bit of mercy. Setting aside their grudges in Shanwu world, over the years, the two demon attendants had tried to kill him more than once. Then there was the fact that Du Xiaofu was enemies with the devil race. How could he possibly let them live? I don't have time to squabble with you. I'll send the two of you on your way now. With the 9 demon generals in front of you, you won't feel lonely. As Du Xiaofu spoke, he deliberately raised his voice, gathered it into a beam, and charged into the depths of the 18th layer of hell. He wanted Jiangchen to hear him and focus on him. With that, Du Xiaofu gripped the heavenly tower of purple and gold with his other hand and slashed down. Squelch, squelch, 2 sounds resounded, and then Dongli Crimson Phoenix and Chen Yin were instantly beheaded. With Du Xiaofu's current cultivation, killing these two people was as easy as slaughtering chickens and dogs. Even the primordial spirits of the 2 great devil attendants were directly reduced to nothingness under the explosion of the sword light. Jiangchen, catch! After that, Du Xiaofu let out a light shout. He lifted up the 2 devil attendants' damaged bodies and suddenly tossed them away. They drew a few perfectly straight lines in the air and directly smashed into the deepest part of the 18th level of hell. Roar, the demon ancestor let out a terrifying roar that pierced through metal and cracked stone. He was finally enraged. Du Xiaofu, I won't let you get away with this. He roared hatefully. However, just as he finished speaking, Lu Xiaoyou's soft snort sounded again. Do you still want to continue hiding? Then, waves of ferocious sword light sliced through the air, piercing through the clouds and shaking heaven and earth. In Du Xiaofu's eyes, in the depths of this space, light surged into the heavens, surging for millions of kilometers. Within this light, profound and complex patterns of the great Tao rose, carrying a unique charm that was completely different from the great Tao of this world. Rumble, Lu Xiaoyu, and the demon ancestor were fighting. Although they couldn't see the specifics of the battle, It wasn't difficult to determine the intensity of the battle based on the terrifying movements. The entire space shook violently, on the verge of collapse. And this was the result of their deliberate control. One could imagine that if they went all out, it wouldn't take long for this space to turn into nothingness. Even the primordial chaos would find it difficult to exist. All that's left is that old bird with mixed feathers. Du Xiaofu narrowed his eyes and carefully probed with the power of his primordial spirit. 9 great demon generals and 2 great demon servants had died at his hands. Now, there weren't many top experts left in the devil race. The only one who could pose a threat to the 33 heavens and the 3,000 boundless worlds was the Blood Ancestor. That old ghost was very cunning. He had entered the 18th level of hell a long time ago, hoping to borrow the demon ancestor's protection. Ever since the Blood Ancestor walked out of the burial space mountain in the Inxiong Wu Dao heaven, every time he attacked, he suffered great injuries. First, Lu Xiaoyu cut off one of his wings. Then, in the 18th level of hell, he was injured by Du Xiaofu. After so many years, the Blood Ancestor must have recovered some of his strength, but it was impossible for him to be too strong. Du Xiaofu naturally wasn't the least bit afraid of this. He carefully explored the first corner of this space, hoping to find the Blood Ancestor's true body. In terms of cultivation, the Blood Ancestor was far stronger than the 2 demon servants. Since he had deliberately concealed himself, it would be relatively difficult for Du Xiaofu to find him. I want to see how long this old bird with mixed feathers can hide. Du Xiaofu's eyes were clear as he scanned the area. Occasionally, he would raise the broadsword in his hand and slash down, causing the area to shatter and turn into a chaotic state. Finding the Blood Ancestor would require a certain amount of effort. As long as Du Xiaofu found something suspicious, he would immediately take action. Finally, at a certain moment, just as Du Xiaofu was about to slash out with his sword, a blood-colored figure shot into the sky and fled into the distance. This figure was the Blood Ancestor. He had been forced out by Du Xiaofu, but as soon as he appeared, he continued to flee and quickly disappeared into the void. The Blood Ancestor had already seen how terrifying this purple-robed young man was in the dark. The 9 demon generals had died at his hands, which made his heart turn cold. How would he dare to face Du Xiaofu? Since you've shown yourself, do you think I'll let you escape? Du Xiaofu raised his eyebrows and smiled sinisterly. His figure flew out, dragging the purple-gold heavenly palace with him. The 9 divine thunder cauldrons also followed him like shadows. Since the Blood Ancestor had revealed his traces, with Du Xiaofu's current cultivation, he naturally couldn't let the other party successfully hide. He dashed towards his target, and the murderous aura around his body surged wildly. Kill! Du Xiaofu's broadsword slashed out, as if it was splitting heaven and earth. Rumble! The 9 purple lightning cauldrons also rushed forward quickly, like 9 majestic mountains moving, crushing heaven and earth into a state of chaos. When this series of attacks landed, a miserable cry was heard. It came from the Blood Ancestor. Human brat, I'll fight you to the death. The Blood Ancestor finally appeared. His hideous and ugly old face was twisted into a ball, and his eyes were filled with unconcealable hatred as he looked at Du Xiaofu. At this time, the Blood Ancestor's broken arm had been reforged and was in perfect condition. The aura on his body had also recovered a lot compared to when he was heavily injured. However, all of this was nothing in front of Du Xiaofu. The Blood Ancestor knew this in his heart, so the moment he appeared, he immediately transformed into the Hell Blood Phoenix. A pair of huge blood-red wings spread out in the void, and he directly pounced on Du Xiaofu. Huff, huff, huff. Scarlet light burst out, and the smell of blood filled the air. The sky was completely filled with blood-red light, and Du Xiaofu's face was reflected with the color of blood. He looked at the Blood Ancestor's attack and stood still, holding the broadsword in his hand. I'm right here, but this time, you won't have the slightest ability to fight back. The chaos origin left behind by Heavenly Lord Daluo is no longer with you. Du Xiaofu snorted coldly, raised his sword, and brazenly attacked. The sword light was like a long rainbow that pierced through heaven and earth, ferocious and peerless. The blood ancestor wanted to fight head-on, which was exactly what Du Xiaofu wanted. Qi, the shocking sword light streaked across the sky, faster than lightning. The 9 purple lightning profound cauldrons also crushed down with the force of 10,000 kilograms. Under such a scene, the blood ancestor's figure was surrounded by the 9 cauldrons, and all of his escape routes were sealed. In the end, the sword light directly slashed the Hell Blood Phoenix's body, causing blood to splatter everywhere. The blood ancestor had no choice but to hurriedly retreat. "Old bird, go to hell," Du Xiaofu shouted, his voice like thunder, shocking the heavens. His figure flickered, and in a flash, he appeared where the blood ancestor's body was. The purple gold heavenly sword in his hand suddenly slashed the Hell Blood Phoenix's body, and the purple-robed figure rushed out of the hole. Behind him, the huge Hell Blood Phoenix's body instantly lost its vitality, like a huge blood cloud that suddenly bore the weight of thousands of tons, falling straight from the sky. Boom! The explosion shook the heavens as the blood ancestor's body smashed into the ground, causing the entire ground to sink thousands of miles. It was terrifying. As a creature of the Pangu realm, you helped the evildoers, colluded with the demon race, and killed your own kind. You old ghost, even if you die 10,000 times, it won't be enough to pay for your heinous sins, Du Xiaofu said coldly, almost gritting his teeth as he spoke. He held a ball of light in his hand, exuding a violent and murderous aura and even fluctuations of vitality.